Hello, or I hope hello. Oh, YouTube. Tonight it was audio. See the picture. Can't hear anything. But hopefully shortly I'll get a thumbs up. Hello, says he. Oh, won't be able to join live. We'll look back. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow then. Hello, Debbie. Oh,
yes, you're live.
Excellent. Looking forward to Scrivener. Fantastic. Hello, Renee. No, not a clue, but I understand one word. There you go. Hello, Abdul. Can't wait for Elaine to start. She always has amazing tips and insights to share from Cape Town. Good evening to you. It is evening in Cape Town, isn't it?
2 hours ahead, I think.
I was going to say it'll be much later in Cape Town. Hello, Deb. CQ. Hello, Patience. And who else do we have with us? Oh, there's lots of chat going on here. I'm loving this. Hello, Kim. Hello, Deb. I think we have a full complement of Debs in. Hello, Carol. Oh, missed you last Sunday. Oh, what fun that was. Didn't actually kick it off quite as badly and was a fraction shorter. Hello, Paul. Who else have we got? Hello, Graham. And Ignacio. Hello. Indeed. Hello, family. Alex is with us. Hello, Alex. And who else have we got? We've got Paul. And we've got Carol. So we've got a full complement of Carols as well. Excellent. Oh, look, there you go. Bad words were being said. Audio this week, not video.
Very
usually
bad
video.
words.
It does annoy me. He doesn't like you to go live early, and then when you do try and go live, it starts playing with your mind. Oh, I'm liking gluten-free lentil pie.
I thought that when I saw it. Yeah.
We're lucky if we're going to get a bottle of water this week, so I'm not going to worry about it. Yes, I've got the updates for Affinity. There's bit deviousness going on there, which I'll explain. Now, Carol, it could be because they're hiding the updates, but all will be revealed after the week at MacBites headquarters. Okay, I think I'm up to date. I think so. Oh, had to stand in for boss this week. Couldn't stay up late last Sunday. Oh, well, there's always a recording, isn't there? I just love book club. It's so much more than a book club. It's a joke. And then we have another Peter. Hello. Right, I think we're all in. Right, so I need to do magic things at my end because it's bad enough to start with without it going any worse. And just to add to the general fun, I have 2 presentations open, so I better make sure that I'm sharing the right one, hadn't I? Before more madness ensues, and there's enough madness already. Okay, I think we are good to go. You see your screen dim for a fraction of a second, and then there's mouse madness going on because it does play with my mind. But now we're ready to get on with it. So what have we got? We've got the week at MacBites headquarters, busy old week. Some fantastic tech tips in there, trust me. I'll point them out as we go. Then we've got the Affinity apps. Not much in the way of much to talk about because they're just fantastically rewritten, but technically you shouldn't see a difference. But I will give you a couple of tips about how to actually get the flaming things installed. Then we've got Alfred's new universal actions. This is completely new to Alfred, but not quite. They're saying it's completely new because they've renamed an old feature and made it better. Then I've got the fabulous CollaNote, which is think good notes, think Notability, and think completely free. Awesome. Mike's got part 3 of pivot tables, and then we're starting our Scrivener series. Scrivener 101, you need to know absolutely nothing at all. This week's will be learning what versions we've got, etc., what I do with it, and a walkthrough of the interface. But don't fear, we have lots and lots and lots of episodes coming up where we can get as detailed as you like, and if there's something specific that you want to see, and I've already had requests for emails and how we do a MacBites, so if there's anything specific, then let us know. But it's the first one tonight. So before we go any further, what has YouTube done to you? 1080p we broadcast in. Make sure that you're watching in 1080p. Because YouTube does like to play with our minds on a regular basis. Does this to me all the time. So you tell me what it's done to you this week. Right, let's see if I can see the chat at the same time as I'm seeing other things. That would be rather amazing, wouldn't it? Right.
It's given me
Awesome.
1080.
Whoa, well done, Mike. Well done. Patience says, I hope the heat wave has subsided a little. It's better, but it's getting oppressive again. So we've not really got sunshine. It's just murky. It's awful. When we went down to Brighton on the coast, and it was way hotter than it is here, it was beautiful because there was a breeze. But here we have no air movement whatsoever. So it's horrible. Right, while you're checking what YouTube has done to you, there is a like button there, and it would be fantastic if you would click it. That would be amazing. Right, so what have we been up to this week? Because there's always excitement at MacBites headquarters. Yes, there was. Well, we had a busy all day on Saturday, but at 8 p.m, it was when we went live with Brooklyn's 196 by request. It was a rare old show this week. There was a couple of firsts, seriously. Oh, look, we've got some 480s here. Oh, no, not good. Not good. Yes, it was a rare old show. It was the songs from your school days, which I thought was pretty innocuous, and I wasn't going to get into any trouble with that at all, which was when the full horror struck. We've been doing the show for almost 18 months. You had worked out how many songs we'd played, hadn't you?
Yeah.
Which was 70 times... thousands. But... yes, it was bad enough to call the police, I thought that. Somebody requested a Morrissey song. Now, I'm sorry. I can't play Morrissey. Not personally, no. Nor the Smiths either. No, just not for me. No. So it was all fine. We said we'll play it early. Mike can play it, because I'm not playing it. Which was fine until about 20 seconds from the end of the song before the Morrissey song. The Asda man arrived. But I still wasn't playing this song. So Mike had to go downstairs, open the door to the Asda man and say, can you give me a couple of minutes, and then slam the door shut in his face.
He was all right about it.
In my defence, right, one, I'm not playing Morrissey or the Smiths, but in my defence, he was 20 minutes early.
He was.
So if he had to wait for a while, that's his problem.
Peter agrees with you. Pass the razor.
Yeah, exactly. It's songs to slit your wrist to, isn't it? So no, I wouldn't play it. Anyway, it got played. Mike did it. But he did have to sack the Asda man off to do it. So there you go. So after that excitement, Kim says she'll admit the song was horrible. It wasn't good, was it? And do you know what? That actually wasn't one of his worst. Girlfriend in a Coma was a bad one. And what was the other one?
I can't remember.
They were bad. They were really, really bad. Anyway, I took my headphones off and I just watched the playhead because I wasn't listening to it. But on Sunday, I thought, right, I'll do something to treat myself on Sunday, to make up for it all. I thought I'll update my computer. Oh, yeah.
Carol wants to know who Morrissey is.
If you don't know, leave it alone. Don't worry about it. He was the lead singer of the Smiths. And he's from Manchester, and everybody in Manchester seems to love him.
He's a Manchester cult hero, but his music leaves something to be desired.
A lot. Is it music, Mike?
He did record a song called Munich 58, so I'll give
sue him. Sue him, that's what we'll do. We'll sue him. Oh, no, it was bad. So, you see it says 18 minutes. Yeah, this idiot decided to do it 25 minutes before book club. Do you know what Apple Minutes are like? I didn't realise it was a big update. Anyway, I thought, in for a penny, in for a pound. So I updated my MacBook Air. This is my venerable MacBook Air from 2012. And it's being updated to Catalina. Even that was only going to take 25 minutes. So at that point, everything was fine. Then I knew I had an issue. On my main iMac, yes, my new one, a drive had died. Not the internal one, thankfully. An external one that I hang off the back called the scratch disk. I needed to see the back of the iMac. Oh, why did I do it? Oh, no. That was only the half of it. You'll notice there's only the card slot free. And everything else is doubled and tripled up. You can see I've got an audio splitter there. Actually, I've got 2 audio splitters. It did get more complicated. So actually, I've got 1 audio output going to 4 other outputs. But my main problem was that hub on the top with the blue cable plugged into it. Because my drive was on that shelf. It was a little SSD, and it was sitting on that shelf, minding its own business. And it stopped working about 5 to 6 weeks ago. And I thought, drive's dead. I'll deal with that. Anyway, this was me dealing with it. I got behind there and I took the drive off that shelf. The drive was off. This must be understood. The temperature of this drive, it was on fire. The leg of the iMac was on fire. And that's just the heat that is generated. If you see the little, let's get the mouse pointer. If we see the little vents here blowing hot air out onto the leg was hot. So I thought, fingers crossed with this drive, which would cost about £200 to replace, that maybe it's not actually dead. Maybe it's the case, I thought. So I plugged it in round the front. It was dead. I took the drive out of the case and put it in a new case, £7.99. Drive not dead. Result! But the problem was, clearly the heat of that leg was melting the hard drive case. So I couldn't really put it back. Oh no. So where was I to put it? And I thought it needs to be somewhere that I've got air flying around it. And when you look at that, there isn't really anywhere, is there? I don't see any of those cables from the front, but there's nowhere there that I could put a hard drive that the case wouldn't melt. I thought I could put it inside something, but then I thought that's going to make it worse. That's just going to insulate it. I did contemplate wrapping it in tin foil, but, it would probably have just baked like it was in an oven. So I needed a plan. Fabulous. I suspended it from a handily placed wall light by Christmas wrapping string. That way it didn't get over warm and it's nowhere near the heat of the leg. I have air circulating 360 degrees and it's happily out of the line of sight of the inferno level heat coming out the back of the iMac. Result. Do you know what? If it works, Mike came back in to find me with the Christmas wrapping box out, frantically looking for the string, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I need Christmas wrapping string, obviously. And then when he came back from walking the dog, that was the sight that greeted him. But you know what? It's working. It's working perfectly. So, on a roll, headed off to book club. Yes, I had provisions and a blanket. We're reading how to read a book. It's not the most, what's the word? Oh, enjoyable, that's the word.
Inspiring.
It's a good book. The content's good, but it's a bit wordy. Do you remember what we used to say about presentations? Had too much text. It's a bit wordy, Wrapping Hood. But at least this week, result, it was only 3 hours, 40 minutes. So we shaved 1 hour and 20 off. No, 2 hours 20 we shaved off, didn't we? Oh, yeah, we did. We did very well. 2 hours 20 less than last week. So that took us on to Monday. New meaning to suspending a drive. Oh, yes, Paul, in my world, yes. It's got to be done. It needed air, the poor thing. Oh, Kimmy's hoping she can get a new shelf because you love the shelf. The shelf has actually gone down in price about £20 this week. And the shelf is fantastic. It's just the heat off the back of this one is more than off the back of the last model. But obviously off an M1 iMac, it should run quiet and cool, shouldn't it? We'll see. Monday, what was supposed to happen actually happened. Finally, the new schedule came together. We actually managed to record MacBites 140 at the time we had planned to. I was surprised as well. That meant on Tuesday, oh, no. Let's go back to last week. Who remembers Bananagate? Well, continuing the dessert theme this week, Mike came in with a photo, laughing his little cotton socks off and said, "You've got to see this. It's for the week at MacBites headquarters." And he said, "It's continuing the dessert theme." And I was like, "Don't tell me, it was a jar of custard or something." No, it wasn't. Who in the Great minds is throwing apple stickers away.
Yeah,
There's something wrong with
sacrilege.
people.
You'd have them, wouldn't you?
Well, I would, but obviously, COVID, so leave it alone. But who? People. Anyway, after we got over the shock of that, it was time for MacBites, and it was premiered on Tuesday at 8, which is its new time. I know, I was shocked as well. Oh, we had a complete ball. But by this stage, the weather was going crazy, and somebody wasn't particularly happy. We had one very important job on Wednesday. Lola wasn't pleased with the weather. She needed serious cuddles to get over it. You'll notice, no doubt, she's on the sofa. Us, kneeling on the floor. Like the slaves that she knows we are. She's just too cute. But she wasn't happy, was she? No. First off, it was like, oh, we're going for a walk, but Daddy, it's raining. And then later on, he had the temerity, didn't you, to open the back door and tell her to go outside and do her business. Oh, no. She was staying in the house. Just too cute. Oh. So Thursday, excitement. Yes, Affinity 1.10 was released. Wouldn't it have been lovely if it was version 2 and there would have been even more sexy features? But no, it was 1.10. But it did at least solve the crashing because, as we know, we tried it last week. And it did. So a little bit more about that very soon. But Friday morning, the small hours of Friday morning, there I was, day of a live show, yet again. What would I do? Oh, I'll change the driver on my mouse. And then it'll never work again. But no, I got invited to a beta program for Logi Options Plus. And it was seamless. It found my mouse, it added the device, and it transferred all of the settings, which meant all my magic secret buttons there. So I never copy and paste with the shortcuts. I copy and paste with two buttons. One is the up button, one is the down button by copy and paste. So I'm testing this out. So if all of this comes crashing down, you can turn around and say, well, it's your own fault. You shouldn't have installed an update the night before to a beta product for a driver for a mouse. But so far, so good. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So first thing we are looking at this week, apparently we're not. I said about if it wasn't working. Let's bring it back. There you go. I knew you would. Is the Affinity apps, which were updated on Thursday. And like I said, it's not really new features. It's all about speed. So all of the apps are faster. In terms of most things, to be honest, but particularly Publisher is the plan. That's the plan anyway. So it's all about speed, and things that like Designer, it's all about the number of layers and the speed. Now, the thing is, it's getting hold of them. You will see that I am here in the App Store. I have typed Affinity into the search, and they have all come up. And on this particular computer, although I have the apps direct from Affinity, on this computer, you can only have those activated so many times. On this computer, I have them installed from the App Store. And every one of them says open, meaning no update. So I waited and I clicked on the updates.
Patience wants to know what type of mouse that is. It looks like a beast.
It's a Logitech MX3, I do believe. Let's have a look.
And Renee's not had the update.
MX Master 3. I think I put the link in if you want to sign up for it. Is a link there, Mike?
I shall go and find it.
There's a link. You should have had an email, but if you haven't had the email, there is a link. You just have to apply. Mine came through straight away. So although they're saying, we'll get in touch with you, it was pretty much instant. And so far, so good with it. So I can't actually update the apps because it's saying that there's no updates. But, and this is stupid, and it works on any app. It's not just the Affinity apps. But if from here, instead of clicking open, if you drill down into each of those apps, just open it up, you'll see there is an update available. And if you keep doing that, you will see there is an update for each one of them. At which point, if you go back to where you started, now it's telling you there's an update. I know, it's ridiculous. But you do have to drill down. Don't rely on this updates at the bottom. This thing that we have here, the updates, don't rely on that. Sometimes stuff appears in there 3 weeks later. In fact, didn't you have an update to an app from 2014 the other day?
I did, ScreenFlow 5.
I mean, you couldn't make it up. So always drill down. to the actual page and install it from there. Right, so let's head off and have a look at Alfred and its universal actions. Oh, Deb got the upgrade. We all sorted with that now if we want it. Fingers crossed. Right, the Alfred Universal Actions update. Let me get straight into it and show you Alfred and what we're talking about. Right, Alfred being, don't open up on the wrong screen, Alfred being a launcher. So for free, you can use this as a launcher. There are other alternatives, which is the Power Pack. So with your Power Pack, that's a paid for thing. You get different levels in here. And I paid more and became a legendary supporter, but I just love Alfred. But the Power Pack is what enables things like workflows. But this is not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is the key features that are in Alfred that will be available, hopefully, for everybody. If you've got the free version, do let me know. Do let me know. Right, there was a feature in Alfred. So initially, if we go to General, you've got the option here to launch at login, which obviously I do, otherwise I'd lose my mind. And then you have an Alfred hotkey. Now, the hotkey, that's not the default. I changed that. But what I did was I changed it for the one that the Mac uses by default for Spotlight, because I don't use Spotlight. So in my Spotlight in here, in the preferences, so this is your Mac preferences, in the keyboard shortcuts, I don't have this one. I have taken the tick out of there because I don't want Spotlight to be used at all. What I want to do is have Alfred come up with the same key. There is a reason for that. There is a rationale for that. The rationale for that is if I use a machine where Alfred isn't installed, then the default keys will kick in and Spotlight will appear. I have had Alfred running on other keys, but trust me, that's the best way to do it with Alfred. So for me, that's the right way. Now, the default features are then in here. And at a very basic level, what Alfred does is it lets you run applications just by typing them in. So if I wanted to run Microsoft Word, I type Word and Word is offered there, as would Excel be if I did Excel. You just press enter, that's it, you're done. And for many people, that's as far as Alfred goes. But I have actually used it for more than that over the years. And to do that, I've looked at these other options that we have in here. So we've seen, I think before, it's got a calculator. So if I type in, it instantly gives you the result at the bottom, 2,220. And if you press enter and then paste, it's copied that onto your clipboard and you can paste with it. So you can calculate in other applications. Love that. Absolutely love that. So that's just one other thing that Alfred has. It also has a clipboard history, if you want to enable that, which I do, as you can see, but I don't actually use it. It's a backup of my clipboard history for me, because I have a dedicated app. There's also snippets. There's some built-in ones. So if you don't want to be typing out this ASCII code, you can use the snippets. So we've got a happy owl snippet at that point. Right, this is how you use it. You put in snip and it comes up with Text Sniper and finds your snippets. But if I then put a space and I start typing, there is happy owl. And when I press enter, it's put that on my clipboard. So if I bring that back and just paste in, you can see it's actually put the thing itself onto my clipboard and I can use that wherever. Okay? So these are just some of the extra things that Alfred does. But there's other things that it does that you might not be aware of. So one of these used to be called actions. They are now called universal actions. I'll explain the difference. But by default, I don't believe these are actually turned on. So the first thing you need to do is find a way to turn these on. How would you like to turn on these universal actions? So just like you have in the general at the top, a shortcut key, in this one, I have a different shortcut key. Now, this one might look really strange because there's a double tap on it. There is a rationale for that. There is, honestly. But what I would do with that, I would instigate this shortcut key, and that would bring Alfred up, and then allow me to apply the actions to whatever I have added to Alfred. So first of all, let's see how that actually works. So let's get ourselves some files. So here we've got some files, just random files. There's the picture of Morrissey. Oh, lucky me. Oh, have I got something I could nuke it with? Right. That shortcut actually means double tap the control key. You don't have to hold anything down, use the mouse, the trackpad or anything else. You just find a file in here. So let's go back to that Morrissey one and double tap that control key. At which point, oh no, I can't really look at that, can I? But never mind. Right, it puts what you had selected in the Finder, it transfers it into Alfred. And then it says, right, what do you want to do now? So these that we're looking at are actions. Do you want to open it? Do you want to open it with a specific application? Do you want to reveal it in the Finder? Do you want to get the info of it? Would you like to copy it somewhere, move it, delete it? Oh, I'd love to delete it. You can browse the folder in Alfred if you want to. You can copy the path to the clipboard. So there's lots of things here with what you've passed it that you might want to do with it. Normally when I'm doing that, if we carry on down the list, because there's a lot more, virtually every time I want to apply a label to it. So if I want to remind myself that I don't really want to look at that, let's apply a purple label to it. So there is a selection in the Finder, double tap the control key and start to type purple. It automatically filters what's available. I press enter and it gets a purple dot. And I love doing that. That is fantastic. Now that it could do before. It could do all of that before. Now the actions themselves are defined in here. So if there's actions that you don't want, you can turn them off. The only one I've turned off is the terminal, because I wouldn't get to the terminal that way. Everything else is then available in there. But this is where the actions are. And what you're looking at here are the default actions. You'll notice that the ability to set a colour is not listed in there. These are just the default ones. But in here is where you can control whether they show up or not. So if you never want to look at the package contents, take the tick out of the box. It will never be offered as an option to you in Alfred. You've also got down here, it says other actions. Well, workflow actions come from in here. So this is a workflow, so it's only available to people with the Power Pack. But you'll see that all of the options to make it yellow and purple and red and yellow and blue and whatever are all in there. So despite the fact it's a workflow, I do want it available from the actions, so hence there's a tick. Anything that you want to extend this as, you create a workflow. You've also got custom web searches. So would you like the web searches to appear? And there's a tick in that. And then finally, I've got my workflow input, keyword inputs and script filters. So basically what I'm doing with these is extending what the actions can do. So what are the changes then, apart from the fact they're now called universal actions? Well, the difference is there's some things in here now that you can do that you couldn't do before they were called universal actions. So we're going to need some text in here. So somewhere, let's get BB Edit. Right, so I'm going to just put some text in it. So let's say we've got a song for tomorrow night, like Summer Holiday. Mike will doubtless put it in something like that and drive me insane. Because what I would want is that is capitalised. So let's say it hasn't, it's totally in lowercase. Right, what I actually do on the night in the spreadsheet is grab the text and I press this shortcut key, and it's not doing it perfectly at the moment, but we'll try that again. There we go. That's an Alfred command. It wasn't something I typed. It's literally just something I've put in there. It's a shortcut key, but it's hideous. So I'll tell you what it is, but it's custom to me. It's Control, Option, Command, Shift and C. So I call that 4 and C. And what it does is whatever text is selected, it transfers it to Alfred and it lets me change the text in some way. So at the moment it's all lowercase. I could change it to uppercase. I could change it to title case. I could change it to camel case, which removes the spaces and capitalises each word. I could put a dash between it, or I could put an underscore between it. And obviously I would want number 3, and that sorts it out. But for that to work up to now, I have to have this shortcut key that I remember and have to try and pass the text to it. Right. Have you got another song we're playing tomorrow? Oh, you have. You've got mine.
Yes, it's at number 1.
From Paris to Berlin. Oh, infernal. Berlin, not Berlin. Right. Same principle, but this time, instead of having to remember the shortcut key, what these universal actions will enable you to do is take the text from there. So let's just grab that text there. Use the same shortcut that you used before, which was, if you remember, in Alfred, it will tell you it was double tap. So part 1, select it. Part 2, double tap it. And your actions appear. It even knows that it's text, because now it's saying text actions. So it could copy it as plain text, it could paste it as plain text, it could save it as a snippet. You could look it up in the dictionary. You could show it as large text. If you've no idea what that does, it does that. Handy if you want some text from across the room when you're entering a password or something. But that's what you can do with it with just a double tap. It's also got in here so all kinds of stuff. So at the email point, that's the end of the built-in options for text. But I have a thing set up to solve anagrams, to search App Shopper, Asda, Audible, Dunelm. So they're just web searches. A web search for Envato Elements. I've got all sorts here that I search Mac Update, I search MacBites, search Pixabay, Tesco's, shopping. So I've added all of these, and then there's some more that have been added from workflows. So that I can take that text and pass it through to any one of these services that take text. And you'll see there is the ability to convert it to lowercase or uppercase. In fact, I've got 2. That's because I have 2 workflows. But technically speaking, I could just convert that to uppercase. Now, obviously, that one doesn't appear to be working, so let's try again. By pushing in upper and trying the next one. Not having that either. That does not look to me like it's actually selecting it properly. It looks like it's selecting the entire row. But we'll give it one more go, and if it doesn't want to know, we're back to doing it the other way. But that's the theory. That's what it's supposed to be doing. So where can I put that it might actually work? Let's have a go in here, but I'm not convinced it'll work in here. This is drafts, so I can paste that in. Oh, it did actually work. What it's done is it's put it on the clipboard. It's not actually pasted it back in, it's just put it on the clipboard. So yes, it worked, but that's not the point. So will it work in here? Let's make it lowercase. Convert to lowercase. Yes, it does. But with that option, you actually have to paste it in. With the way I do it, you don't. You just select it and then it does the rest. But the essence of that, let's clear that and get that out of the way. The essence of the principle of what I'm trying to show you is that the universal actions are now, you can operate on the text without having to pass that to Alfred first. So before, these options were there, but you had to manually kick them into action. But at the minute, no. What they're doing with these universal actions is that you can actually operate on a file or text or whatever you pass into it. So if we try the Morrissey one again and do the double tap, it looks fairly similar, but it's now the difference between last week and when I installed this update is it's working in a different way and it's added features to it. So precisely what you will see depends precisely on what you've got in here. But it's operating on the file itself and it's extended greatly what you can do with it. If you want to extend it even more, then you can add workflows in. So like I made that one purple, not available built in, but is available as a workflow. So this is only the beginning for this. I think they've changed the name and kind of made it more well known, because I think what they'll be able to do is add to this and extend it, but also people will be able to make workflows, and then by putting the ticks over here to include the workflows, you'll be able to extend what your version of Alfred can do based on that. But do remember, for the workflows, you're going to need the Power Pack license. You just find out how much that is these days. It's that long since I bought it. Right, okay, any questions on that? Love Alfred, absolutely love Alfred. I try not to overload it. I try to make sure when I make a workflow that I do actually use it, rather than having something there that I don't.
£29 for a single user, $49 for the mega supporter with the free lifetime upgrades.
I went for the free lifetime upgrades on version 2, I think, or maybe even version 1. So I'd already had like either 2 or 3 versions included, and that's why they put this thing in for the next level up, and I thought, I literally can't live without Alfred. I know there's Launchbar, but I just shifted from Launchbar to Alfred. Alfred got more updates at the time, and I don't think Launchbar's been upgraded in a while. So I switched and decided it's so critical I go to the next level of support rather than see them go under, because they'd been offering lifetime licenses. But it is amazing, and you don't have to be able to know how to actually code it. You've seen how complicated some of these things are. So just the one that I showed you, which is this one. But another one that I've written is for navigation. So it's how I navigate stuff. So I use these codes here, which are just the letters that you can see, and then it does magic to open all these things. So this is one of the things that I've done, and you can see there are that many of them. But it's useful to me. So if I wanted to see, let's get rid of this slot. If I wanted to see my PowerPoint files, F for folder, PP for PowerPoint, and I'm straight there. There it is. There's all the stuff. Oh, back to after hours 128. So I can just go here. The reason that there's 3 for each one is I have the original PowerPoint file, I make a PDF, and I have a folder, and the folder's full of images. And this is the main folder that holds the lot, which is in my application support PowerPoint folder. But instead of having to navigate to it, I've written a script in Alfred to open up this particular folder. And the beauty of it is, because it's in Dropbox, and Dropbox is in the same location on every Mac, it works on every Mac without me having to recode it, which I love. So I use Alfred a lot for navigation. There's a lot of stuff that I do that navigates like that. Do we have any questions on that? Kim says she thinks she uses Alfred more than any other app. Alfred's got this cute feature, and it does reset, which is very annoying. And it doesn't collate either. So it resets when you buy a new machine and you install it from scratch. But that's my usage for it. So I am averaging, 122 times a day I access Alfred. This looks like a particularly busy day, wasn't it? When was that? You're going to tell me when that actually was? At some point in the last 20 odd days. And it shows you that purple is general. So that's probably running apps. And hotkeys, which is when I use a hotkey to do a specific job, which is the green bit. I use that a lot. And there's some actions as well, which is the yellow bit. So go and find out. Go and look at it. And it will tell you how many times you've used it. And you can see that was since the 10th of December 2020, which was the day this Mac got installed. So that's why it's been that long. Love it. Oh, Alfred is just too cute. Right, okay then, if you've got any questions, do put them in. Other than that, I will press on, because we've got a lot to do. Oh, this one's going to be good. Right, this is a newish app. I say newish. It's new, but it's been getting a lot of traction lately, because the developer has put out, I think in the last month or so, 30 updates. It's the pace of the updates is amazing. It is a notes app similar to GoodNotes and Notability. But to be honest, this one, while it's missing a few features, this one actually has a range of features that neither of those have. It is very, very good. And it is free. So it takes notes with the pencil. You can type if you want, but it's better with the pencil. One of the key features I've never seen implemented, as well as this is implemented, is the black to white thing, that you can switch to dark mode, but dark mode is twofold. It's dark mode for the interface and or dark mode for the content, if that's what you want. So if you're working in bed because it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you could make the notes dark mode as well. There is real-time collaboration, which has only just been added to GoodNotes, so that completely surprised me as well. It's written by a guy who is a student, so hence CollaNote. I'm assuming college notes. There's a lot of paper that you can use, and there is various templates available as well. But you can't yet put your own in, which that's got to be added. I've got to have that. You can sign the documents. You can use markup on PDF, so you can import PDFs and mark them up if you want. And there is this collaboration thing where you can go into a question room and work with other people globally, or you can create your own community. So that's what it looks like when you go in. I'm about to go into it on my iPad and share it with you, or that's the plan. If that comes crashing down, well, we'll worry about that later, won't we? But let's see if AirServer is in a jolly good mood at the moment. Ooh, Carol's on average 8.5 times a day. You're not using it enough. The more you start, well, I would be using it even more if I used it for the copy and paste, which I don't. So that's about my average and has been for quite some time. Right, I'm going to share my iPad. Fingers crossed this whole thing works. Otherwise, it's not going to be the best experience because you won't be looking at the iPad. Go on, you can do it. You can. It's having a think about it. It's pondering it. And it's not getting any further. Oh, come on. Don't do this. You wouldn't, would you? Nope, it doesn't like it. Okay, let's do some quick checking. Why does it always do this? Right, you're on the right network. Everything's on the right network. Everything's working, just that you don't particularly want to share it. Right.
CollaNote's iOS, isn't it?
No, it's iOS at the moment. I don't know whether they're going to bring out something for the Mac, but at the moment, it's not having it. It's not having it, Mike. That's not good. It won't screen mirror.
Oh.
Okay, let's plan B it. Fingers crossed this works. I'm plugging it in. This may or may not be a good idea. Right, so let's come across to you and see if that works. Right, if that doesn't work, I'll have to do a QuickTime thing. Where's QuickTime gone? Right, and then I'll have to do a capture from QuickTime. Everything gets, do you want to trust this computer? Yes, if it's all the same. Oh, you're kidding me. It's saying it will do it, but it wants to do an update. Have I tried turning it off and on again? Oh, Renee, it's going out of the window. I did this yesterday. I checked it was working yesterday, and it was. And I installed the update. It's telling me I need to update right now, yesterday. And it worked. And now it's just playing with my mind. 13 seconds. Hopefully these are Apple seconds. 2 minutes 20. Yeah, they clearly are Apple seconds. Right, you have a toddle like that, and then I'll see if it'll work on here. New. It's new screen recording, isn't it? That's what I want. No, it's not. No, it's the other thing that I want. Oh, it's not going to play ball. Go away. It should offer me it as a screen, and it's not. New device. No, it's not doing it. Right, have you actually gone away now? Oh, 1 minute 12. Let's talk amongst ourselves. Well, anyway, it's an iOS app. If you've used GoodNotes, if you've used Notability, you will be instantly at home. The reason that I sort of offer it as another alternative is some of the features that it's got that the others don't have. So, here, always presupposing that we can see our screen mirroring. Ooh, it's Christmas. Fingers crossed. You said you were doing it. You said you were doing it. Oh, and you are. Right, fabulous. So, needs an update every time you install it by the look of it. I think it's using the cable, but I wouldn't like to say. But either way, let's carry on with it. So there's CollaNote. It is iOS only at the moment, but the guy is working on it like a demon. If he could just get a couple more developers, maybe have some kind of in-app purchase, which gives him enough money to get a developer, that'd be an idea. But this is what it looks like as soon as you go into it. Now, what I've done with this is all the stuff I was doing when I was testing it, I have got rid of. So I uninstalled it completely to start again, because there are lots of ways to customize it, and I didn't want you to be seeing it half customized and think, where did that come from? So yours will look exactly the same as this when you start with it. So I need to find this. Where's that gone? It's definitely playing with my mind tonight. There we go. Right. So I'm going to start off just by creating a note, and I'm going to come back to the management of the notes later. But in essence, what you're looking at is 2 folders, one called Math, because clearly there should be an S on that, and the other called Physics. That should be Physic if it's Math, shouldn't it? There you go. There's also 2 public notes. There is a public note there, which I'm not going to go into the public notes while we're doing a demo. That way madness lies. And a public question room. But all I'm going to do is tap in the top right-hand corner and make a new note. So this offers me the ability to create a new note and name that note. So if I go back over here, we'll call this After Hours 140. There we go. Now, you then have an option for the paper type that you use. And there's quite a few. There's 38 options in here. So some of them are really weird. But, you know, maybe you'd need them for college. I don't know. When I was at college, post-grad doing Law Society finals, we had this paper we needed for accounts. And you had to buy it in the little shop that they had. It's like something like £3 for a pad of notepaper. It would have been great to have something like that available in here. So if you could make your own, that would be even better. But this is the paper that you've got. So I'm going to go for quite a wide one there. But you can also choose a template from those that you've got down here. And again, you've got lots of those to choose from. So some of them are monthly planners. You've got to-do lists. You've got weekly planners. There's quite a lot in there. You've even got a legal pad in the top right. So if you did want something that was a to-do list or a monthly plan, then you could choose that from there. I'm going to keep it fairly basic and go for this notes aligned one. And then create the note. And that adds it to our file management option here. Then, obviously, you tap to go into it. And you have the interface that you're going to be working with. It doesn't tell you, if you noticed, what page size it is. So could it be A5, A4? It doesn't say. I think it'd be nice to have the ability to set the size, because when you've done with this, one of the things you can do is export it to PDF. And it'd be nice to know what size that PDF was. So, what happens in here when you start adding information to it is, as we scroll, well, actually it's not scrolling at the minute, is it? Oh, come on, you don't want to do that. You need to be scrolling. That's the one I need to get rid of it. Right, let's do that. So I can pan and scroll. So I've hit that hand. It puts a page number at the bottom, and it automatically gives you another page when you get near the bottom. But we're going to start with the tools that we've actually got. It uses, so to start off, we have the pen, which is the first tool in the tool block we have in the middle. And the pen is built on Apple Pencil Kit ink. So it's great to write with it. And if you've ever tried Apple Notes, it's going to be exactly the same, because they're using exactly the same technology. One thing to think about because of that, so let me get this. I don't think I'm going to need the keyboard. And I would like to get to this to be able to write on it. And now I'm trapped on a cable. Right, I'm there. Right, so if I put some text in here, first thing I'll say with that is that's way too skinny. So you tap on it and you have the option to have one of 20 different widths. So this goes up in increments of 1 and there's 20. So I think I had it on about 4 or 5. You can also change the colour from here and you have a full range of colours. The colour at the top where it says more colour and done, that is indicating what colour you have selected. So that's how it tells you what you've got selected. You can also scroll across and get a whole range of colours more in there. In fact, I'd say there's too many. There's too many. But they're all in there anyway. You also have at the bottom where it says 100% on the right, this changes the opacity of the ink. So if for some reason you want it hidden, you could have it hidden. No, that's not going to happen to me. But I've chosen a colour and I've set a width. You can in here. So I've got it on the blue. Well, sort of blue. So I'm tapping on the background and now putting a hello. And that's much easier for me to read. It's a bit thicker. I would probably go for 5, I think. So let's take it up to 5. That does say 5, doesn't it? Let's try again. Oh, yes, that's much better. So I would like to use that as 5 and that colour. It will remember the width if I change the colour. So if I change that to like a wine colour or an orangey red colour, it will remember the width. Is it pressure sensitive? Yes, I do believe it is. Yes, it is. So it's exactly the same as the Apple one. The more I push in the middle, so if I start really light and then push down on it, it is. So yes, but your mileage may vary depending on how you want to use that. You can see here I'm also deleting stuff as we go because I've activated the eraser. But I'm sticking with the pen at the moment because there's so much that this can actually do. These are the little things. Oh, I wish GoodNotes had this. Right, in here, when I'm working, I tend to write in blue. I find black just a little bit too harsh. So I want a very deep blue, probably something like that, which is actually quite petrol-y. I think my blue would be more blue than that even. What else have we got? What's that one like? Nope, that's too light. That's going to be too light. No, I think I'll go back to that blue there, which is that petrol-y one. That would be my default, or maybe that one. Or that's too purpley. Too purpley. So that would be my default that I would have. So I can tap Add to Favourites. And what that does is place it in the top right-hand corner. What is fabulous about that is when you go back to the pencil, the other 2 colours I tend to have, I always have a red, so I'll add that to Favourites. And I always have a green. Add that to favourites. So those are the colour that I actually work with my notes. And to have them available up there is just fantastic. So if I'm putting stuff in and I put item 1 and that's green, it's that fast to go over there and put item 2 in red and then get my default, which is a very dark blue. Love that. Absolutely love that. Doesn't finish there though. So let's get rid of that lot. I think there's dirt on the iPad. Right. That is just with the pencil that you've got there, with a pen. Now, the pen is like a ballpoint pen. And like I say, it uses Apple Pencil Kit ink. It is great to write, but the thing to remember with it is, if I just put hello again, and then zoom in, and remember with that, it's that hand. With it, with the red squiggle, it's going to let me squiggle. But if I tap that, now I'm able to move around with it. So I've zoomed in as far as it will let me zoom in. And I don't think it's going to be clear to you, but it is to me if I get really close to that with my like 5 level glasses on. Because it's using Apple Pencil, the problem with it is it's not vector ink. It's raster ink. Now, the difference between the two is vector ink, as the name implies, it's vector, it's infinitely scalable. Raster ink, less so. So it gets a little bit fuzzy if you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. But for everyday use, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Right, what else have we got in here? The great thing with these favourites is they can be per notebook or across the application, which is like, wow. Does the double tap on the pencil activate the eraser? Yes, it does. So if I tap on the pencil, so I'm on the pencil, and I double tap the pencil, and that takes me to the eraser. So yes, it does. In fact, it does that better than some of the other ones that I've used. But these favourites, because we're not finished yet. So one option in your options up here is favourite tools. I've now got into dark mode. Favourite tools for all the notes. So if I always use these favourites in here, then that will carry them across all the notes I use. But if I have a particular set of notes that I want to have one set of tools and another note that I want a different set, then you could do that as well. In fact, that's the default. So the default is those favourites are per note that you create. But while I was playing around, I thought, what if I inadvertently added one and then I didn't want it? So if we go into here and we find some lurid silly pink that I am never going to want, but I've added it to the favourites by mistake. And I thought, well, I'll double tap it. No, that didn't do a thing. So I started thinking, how would I, if I was the developer, how would I enable that I could delete a favourite? While I was doing it, what was fascinating was I grabbed this and I dragged it. I just flung it, and you can place them anywhere you like. Only found that out while I was trying to delete it, which was ridiculous. That's amazing. I love that. And once I've picked it up, you'll see at the bottom, that's when the bin comes into play, and that is how you get rid of it, which was even more fantastic. Love that. It means that you can put like one further down, or just separate them. So, you know, your defaults are at the top, but you're separating them by dragging them down. Love that. That is fabulous. Now, we'll work along here. The next one is the pencil. Very similar to the pen. You can use the same colours as the pen, and they can be saved as favourites. So it just behaves differently because it's a pencil, not a pen. Again, it's using the Apple Pencil Kit implementation. So it's exactly the same as you would find in any other app. So let's say for this one, we want the purple one, and we want, come here, we want that set to 5, like the other one. And then that one is the pencil. And you can see from that it is actually writing like a pencil. It's very jagged at the end. It is definitely writing like a pencil. Right. Just like you can with the pen, you can go into the pencil and you can say add to favourites, and it puts it over there. And if I would like that a bit further down, can I put the pencil below there? Oh, doesn't want the pencil to go below there. I have no idea why. But you can have a favourite. The next one is the highlight option. Now the highlight I found interesting. I wasn't sure which it was particularly using, this favourite one, for the highlighter. So if I do this, that's definitely not the kind of highlight that I want. By default, I think that was the one it used. So if I put that behind there, there we go. But I actually wanted something that was much brighter than that. I wanted this one. So if I just erase the highlight of that and go back to the highlighter, bring that in. And what I love with the highlighter, Notability used to drive me mad with this, is it doesn't make the text muddy, which it can do on other applications. You can in here, I think with a highlighter, I probably would make that bigger and just draw around it. And as you scribble on it, the more you scribble, the deeper it gets. Now there is an option in the preferences where it says highlight behind the handwriting. Doesn't seem to make that much difference at the moment, but I would want the highlighting behind the text rather than it making it muddy over the top of it. And the beauty of this is, that's the yellow one that I want. I'm going to add it to the favourites just like the other options, and then go in and find, oh, what are the highlight? I quite like green highlighting. So let's delete that highlight, and let's put a green highlight on. And of course I can also, with that, when I think, yep, that's right, I can add that in. So it's a great way, particularly for the pen. I don't think I'd use a pencil much, but the pen and the highlight, that would be pretty cool. I probably want some kind of pinky purpley thing. Probably like that. Let's test it first. That's not bad. It's not bad. does go quite dark and then twang back again. Not quite sure why, but we'll add it to the favourites. So I've got my 3 highlighter favourites, and I've got my 2 pens down there. I've got a pencil and my default one at the top. Now, when it comes to moving stuff that you've put on here, you have this option, which is the cut option. It's to make a selection. You have 2 options, and by default, it's rectangular, and I can't understand that. I mean, it's simple to use. Now I've picked it up, and now you move it. But you can also do other things with it. So you've got all the options here. You can save it as a picture. You can cut it, copy it. You can change the colours. You can scale it. If you wanted it much bigger or smaller, you can do that. But I find if I've handwritten notes, I don't tend to write on the lines. I know I'm a rebel. I don't tend to write on the lines. So I actually find this second option, the freeform one, much better. With the freeform one, you can start from anywhere and just draw around it. And that is far better as far as I'm concerned, especially when it's notes and I might have something pointing to it. And if I did the rectangle one, it would select the entire thing. So personally, I would have it set to that. The first time I saw that as a method of selection was OneNote. And so I call it the OneNote option. Now, you've seen that I've been going and deleting things like just the highlight, like that, or the text just by drawing through it. And you do have undo over here. That is from any of the other tools. If I double tap on it, it will bring up the eraser. The eraser itself, when you tap on it, has multiple options. So initially it's set to whole, which is you just touch a bit of whatever it is and it deletes the lot, or you draw a line through it and it deletes it all. The other option is partial, and what that enables you to do is just delete a bit of it. So if you literally just wanted to tidy that up at the edges, you can do that. If you want to delete the whole thing and you've got that option enabled, you actually have to do that and go all the way across the whole thing. I think it's probably better to have it set to whole. One option is when you've used it to switch back to the last tool. That can be a double-edged sword, but I'll show you what happens with it. So we're in here and we're writing hello again. And we switch to the eraser. So I've double tapped my pencil and I decide to delete those 2 letters at the end. It automatically transfers me back to the pencil tool, which you're either going to love or it'll drive you insane. I personally think if you've got the eraser set where it's doing the whole thing, that is probably easier. So do that and then it twangs back to the pen. That to me would be the perfect setting. Can you strike through the text? You can strike through the text with a pen. So literally just strike it through. It's not anything special in terms of an option to strike it through. You're literally just like if you had a pen in your hand, you're just manually striking it through. I think there's one more option in there. There is a scribble out to erase option, which is a bit hit and miss, but we'll put it on. So you've got the pen enabled. We put the hello back. You activate the eraser and you just... Actually, no. I think you can do that another way. If we have that in there, can we just scribble that out and it erase it? There we go. That's even faster than using the eraser. So I'm not switching from the pen. If we look at the pen, I've got my default deep blue and I'm just scribbling through something. That one it didn't understand. That's the problem with it. It's great when it does, but not so great when it doesn't. That could be because that had a line through it. So if we took that line away, no, we don't want to do that. Cancel out of that. Not yet. Don't get excited. Right, let's get rid of the pink line. Let's go back to the pen and let's try scribbling through it then. Yeah, so it was because there was a line in it. I'm loving Stephen's comment. CollaNote looks nice, but I'm not sure I can add yet another app to my confused life in front of tech.
I know how he feels.
Yeah, I get that. And I did think that myself because I've already got GoodNotes and Notability. And Notability, I mean, I've had Notability years. I think I bought it when it was new. And then I settled on GoodNotes. And I looked at this and I thought, the last thing you need, woman, is yet another one. And you're right, it is. But Notability came into it when GoodNotes broke. Given that this is currently free, I think it's probably worth downloading. You may be grandfathered into something should it ever become paid. And also the speed of the development. There was a video that I saw that mentioned like probably about 6 to 8 I wish it had X features. And 3 weeks later the app's got it, which is like, wow. Just wow. Considering that it's a single developer, which obviously I am very wary of, the speed of the development is just amazing. Right, so we've seen the erase options, haven't we? Including scribbling it out, which I really like that. That I do like. Now the text, which came up briefly, that's what the text looks like. So it says type your text or write with an Apple Pencil. Now the reason that there's no keyboard, so obviously I can't type the text, is because I've got an Apple Pencil in my hand. So what it actually wants me to do is write this stuff out. So this was an idea for an after hours demo. And you can see I am not being careful with this at all. It didn't do bad. It even got, it didn't get 4, but it did know to change it to 4. So that was done by writing on it. You've got this entire area here, right, that you can write on. And once you've done it, you can change the colour. So there is a colour option down the bottom with all of the available colours. So if it's for after hours, it needs to be like a burnt colour. That's fine. And I can't live with that font. It's Comic Sans. It's got to go. But there is a font selector down here. You can't upload custom fonts, but if it's a font that's on the thing, you can use it. So my favourite font, don't disappear, is Avenir. So I would make it Avenir. Right, I'm happy with that. I don't know where they've come from. Probably me wafting this pencil around. But that is rather good. So I'm happy with that. And then I tap done. And it puts on the page a block of text. And then I can decide how big that is. See if I can get it lined up with the lines. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? That's almost lined up with the lines. In here, you can copy it to the clipboard. You can say you're done with it. You can bin it, which is in the top right-hand corner, or you can stretch it out and keep editing it. Now, if you're done with editing it, and you then want to go and start drawing on it, stuff like this after you've put some text in, you might think, well, that box is not disappearing. We have this box next to the hand over here. So that enables you to edit in a box. And then when you turn that off, you're not editing in a box anymore. But if you want to edit the stuff that's in there, you tap the box. Right, there's only 2 other tools that we've not actually looked at. So we've looked at the hand tool. That is what toggles you between drawing with your finger and navigating with your finger. So now I'm navigating with my finger. So I think I'd probably have that all the time. The wrist rejection is perfect, so there's no problem with that. And you've got this ruler option. So if for what I never managed these snazzy ruler things, not even as a kid. But if you wanted to draw lines, you can do like that's not brilliant, is it? Crying out loud! Come on, that you're supposed to twang to the line. There we go. So it is twang to the line there. Then you can turn this round. So move it across there. And go through that like that. I never managed this. Did you have a slide rule?
Yeah.
I don't think I even had one. I had a 6-inch ruler in my geometry kit. 99p from...
Oh, yeah, I had one of those. Yeah. I didn't have a slide rule.
No, I didn't have a slide rule. No, beyond me. Right, so
and I had a compass and protractor.
You won't be allowed a compass these days. It's a lethal weapon. Right, left the best for last, which is the one with a star on it. Right, you've got an automatic shape tool in here. So that toggles on the automatic shape tool. So if I put in as near a triangle as I can get, or as near a square as I can get, or as near a circle as I can get, it even does stars. But this is a tinge tricky. I think I did it as 2 inverted triangles. How did I do that? Like that, I think. Yay! It worked! Good grief. You can actually draw it if you can draw a star. Oh, lovely. I was going to show you that one. just by doing that. That's one I think I would use much more. Don't you think, Mike? Because it's somebody's birthday next week. So there'll be lots of hearts flying around. I think you can actually draw the whole heart as well, if you're any good at doing that. But clearly stars are a little bit beyond me. But it snaps basically to a shape. Oh, right. Let's go back to the ruler. In fact, we could scribble some out, couldn't we? Oh, that's not going well. That is because that's enabled. So I don't particularly want that enabled. So let's turn that off. Oh, you're not let me turn you off. No, you're not, are you? Well, I'll show you the fill while we're at it then. Right, it's got a fill selected in here. And you've got different styles as well. So if I want to do it like that one, which is a bit murky, so it looks more organic, you can do that. I think, so I went back into the fill and chose a different fill, something more subtle like that. Oh, that's good, because now I've got two. Oh yes, lovely. But let's go back to a solid one. If I tap on there, you'll see it doesn't actually do it, but it will fill the blank ones. As far as I'm concerned, if I've got a fill in it and it's different to the fill that's the currently selected one, I would much rather see that. But obviously at the moment I'm not seeing that. So that's not great, is it? I think you have to take the fill away first before you can do it. You've also got a curve tool where you can draw your own shapes. And it will actually follow round. I think this is very, very clever. And that is quite nice, that one. So they're hidden away under the stuff you've got in here. There isn't actually a presentation mode with this, but there is a laser pointer. So the laser pointer, I'm putting my pencil on the screen and drawing around things, and it appears on the screen as I do that. So maybe in the future there will be more of a presentation mode in it. But there are, with the laser pointers, loads of laser pointer styles. Completely different stuff. And you've got a smaller one, a medium one, or a big one. That should say large. Oh, it's going to bother me, that. I think that one's rather good. So that's what that does. If you are presenting this. I don't know whether you would. To me, I don't think I'd present my notes. But it's nice that it's there as an option anyway. Right, so what else have we got? Oh, we've got the ability to add content. So let's move down here. On to page 2. And we have a plus button. And with our plus button, we can actually take a photo. So it would like access to the camera. There we go. Oh, there's my potty plants. They're still doing rather well, aren't they? Right, so yeah, we'll have that. Use the photo. And it pops that in, and you can do whatever you need to do with that in terms of scaling it. Or you would do. Why aren't you scaling it? You were before. There we go. So there's the image that I've got in. You can, so we'll move that out of the way. You can go and take one, import one from the library. So let's insert from the photo library. And these are just random things that I've got. But let's bring Wilson and Shergar in. There he is. And also available from here, if you've got something on the clipboard, you can do that. If you've got text on the clipboard, you can put text boxes and rich text, etc. We've also got this ability to scan. So you can do scan a document with the camera or scan text with the camera, which to me sounded rather similar. So I've got half a document on the desk. So if I do the scan document, it wants that in view. And when it finds it, it automatically takes that. So drag the corners to adjust. Now this was amazing. If I only wanted this bit here, I wish you could see where my finger was, because I'm nowhere near that circle. Nowhere near at all. So the way that you would take this round like that, because I only want that paragraph, you don't have to be that precise at all, which is really nice. So I'm going to keep that scan. And it says ready for the next scan, but I don't want another scan. So I'm going to tap save on that. And it's whipped it in and put it there. And done a rather nice job on it. So let's get it a bit more room so we can see it. Now, that is a scan of a document. So looking at it, there's no background you can't see through it. There is a background to it. There's actually, if you zoom in enough, you can basically see paper. You can see the imperfections in the paper. The other option that there was in there, in the scanning, was to scan the text with the camera. So let's go back to the same text. Just want that paragraph. Right, drag the corners to adjust. So I'm doing exactly the same as I did before. But this time I did use a different option. So this time, technically, I just want the text. I'm less concerned here. I'm trying to get that just about. I'm trying to help it, not hinder it. Yeah, it's not bad. Right, keep the scan. And save. And this time, it's the text that it has extracted, not the actual document. So there you go. The text is there. Not done a bad job. Let's have a look. Top line's okay. Of needed. Yeah, now there's a bit there where it says there are no changes that directly. And it's, for some reason, it's put in a carriage return. So you would have to tidy that up. But it has extracted the text from that, which I think that's pretty good. That it's already got that is pretty good. Right, the other thing that you can insert from here is stickers. And who doesn't like stickers? Have we got any unicorns? Cartoon animals. Gross oversight. No unicorn. We'll just have to have a bunny. I liked bunnies when I was a kid.
Bunny the dog.
Bunny the dog as well, yeah.
Bunny the dog.
No, I love bunny rabbits. Oh, bunny rabbits. Right, so stickers of the day are emojis. There's the cartoon animals. So there's my rabbit. And these are like the stickers in any other app. But you can see the impact of them not being vector. You know, when you make them that big, they do start to pixelate a bit. But there's your stickers. Your stickers are in categories. So as well as stickers of the day, you've got the animals, you've got emojis, you've got speech bubbles, which are very handy, peoples and bodies and all kinds of things in there. That, to me, will come into its own when you can make your own. Obviously, speech bubbles, big for me at MacBites. The thing with speech bubbles is, if you then want to add something to that, so I didn't particularly want to do that. Let's go back to where we were. There we go. And I wanted to put something in it. That's grand. And then I want to move it. Right, if I'm just moving the shape behind it, it won't move with everything. So let me grab that and move it. That's just the text. If I want that to move, I need to move it separately. And that's why it's so important you've got something that you can actually move those with. It would be great to be able to group them, or for it to automatically know if one intersects the other, then it should be grouped. But nice anyway. Right, the dark mode that we talked about is the dark skin, which makes everything apart from the page dark. And it also adds like a highlight to these favourites. So you can tell what is what, even when it's dark. But the other option is to actually change the page itself. Some things it leaves alone. So obviously the text, it knows you can see that over the top of what's behind it. You can see the rabbit. It's left everything the same apart from the background. And then you've got the stuff that you've drawn. Oh, good grief, that's set the A lady off. Right, so if I just type in there now, despite the fact that I'm using a very dark blue, it's coming out as light blue because I've got that set. Right, if I go in there and turn that off, it knows to convert that back to my default navy blue. So the dark stuff's very good as well. Right, there is collaboration. It does require an account, and the account must be attached to either Facebook, Google or Apple, which put me off a bit, I'll be honest. So I haven't done any testing of that yet. But your notes themselves, you can export, so print and export to PDF. So I'm going to do that with this file. It's a grand file, isn't it? Where's it gone? Right, I'm going to save this to Dropbox, which is that one there. That's absolutely fine. Just save it. We'll look at that when we switch over. And the last thing to look at, you can also export this in a CollaNote format if you want to share it with somebody else, just, you know, sneak aware. But also in here is the organisation that we've got. So I said there were 2 folders and then 2 public notes. With this one, we've got our After Hours 140. I'm going to tap new in the top corner. That's how we create them. So we've seen that, but we will create one for one of these monthly ones. And that's what you get. So it's really nice that. It would be even better if you could do your own, obviously. But I have actually produced these from OneNote, Outlook. It's a PDF. And when I need an overview of a month like that, personally love the fact it starts on a Monday as well. But that's just me. So they are very, very nice. All right. Also in here is the ability to make a new folder. So when I make a new folder, we'll call the folder MacBites. And then we will put, so OK to that. Now, at this point, I need to get the After Hours 140 into the MacBites folder. And I would have thought I'll just pick it up and move it. And it doesn't like that, not doing a thing. But you do have organising mode. Let me go into organising mode. Right, let's carry on organising then. You can rename, move, duplicate or delete. And with this one, I actually want to move it. So I did wonder if I could actually just pick it up. I'm sure I did that, but there is a move option. So I'm just going to tap MacBites and then select that folder. And that has disappeared. So if I come out of organising mode, but go into MacBites, there are the notes inside MacBites. Now, it's using at the moment, by default, all of these are on its local storage in the Files app. So you could manipulate these things just by going to the Files app. But you also have the opportunity, if you want to store them on iCloud Drive. Completely up to you. There is the ability, like I said, for your account, but you can see here, login is only for collaboration. You only need to do that to collaborate, but you do need to hook it up to one of the services that it's got there. And that is CollaNote. So, do we like that? Do we have any questions? I'll have you know, Dee knows all about that picture from the star. She knows exactly what the star's like. Oh, Patience likes a Monday starter calendar as well. I just find Sundays like winding down and preparing for the week. That just works well for me, so I do prefer that. Right, if you've got any questions about that, let me know. Right, let me come out of there and get that out of the way. We got there in the end, didn't we, with the iPad?
We did.
This iPad plays with my mind on a regular basis. How can it work one day and then need exactly the same thing doing the next day? It's beyond me. It is totally beyond me. Right, so we're about to head over to Mike and his Excel.
Are we?
We are.
Right.
So I'll let you get ready first.
Yeah.
While we admire the slide.
Windows all over the place.
Windows all over the place, and knowing Mike, file icons all over the desktop.
No, I've got the file open.
Oh, you've been a good boy.
I'm being a good boy.
Good boy.
Good boy. Good girl.
That's exactly the tone you use for the dog. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Always ready, good grief. Right, they can see you.
It's unicorns again. Shall I start?
Yes.
Right, okay. It is Power Pivot. No, it's not Power Pivot.
You see, you're lying straight away.
That was my webinar earlier. But it's,
don't give them that one, Mike. It was an hour and a half.
It was similar. No, it's pivot tables, and it's the third session on pivot tables. So the first one I did was the real basics, pivot table 101. Then I moved on to pivot table 102. So I looked at a few more features last week, and this week I said I would look at slicers and calculated columns. So let's look at what slicers are. Slicers are to do with filtering. So if I just take this first pivot table here, so there's my raw data, just to remind you. It is sales of Unicorn Clothing Company branded clothes. So we have the order date, we have the product, we have the country that we sold it to, and the revenue. And I have summarized that data into 3 nice little pivot tables. But let's say I wanted to filter the pivot table. Well, there's some filtering that I can do by using the drop down arrow. So because I've got the list of products down column A, down the first column of the pivot table, I can just select the ones that I'm interested in just by using the tick boxes. It only affects that pivot table. It hides anything I haven't selected. And then if I want to clear the filter, I just click the filter button and choose clear. I can also filter based on the numbers, even though the numbers aren't there in the drop down. I can create a value filter. So I could say, right, I'm interested in all the products that had a revenue over 100,000. So I click the filter button, set up a value filter, and set up a greater than filter, and say, show me the items where the revenue is greater than 100,000. That's not 100,000, I've put too many zeros. 100,000. That's it. You see, I can never talk and count the number of zeros at the same time. So there we go. There is the products where the revenue is over 100k. Okay, so what I will do now is clear that filter. It only affects that pivot table. So let's clear that filter. So any filtering only affects the pivot table that you set the filter on. Now, as well as being able to filter on the columns that are in the pivot table, you have got this filters box over here in the panel. So if I was to drag country into that filters box, it sets up a filter which is hidden by the look of it. Let me just clear that text box. Yeah, there it is. It always puts it 2 rows above the headings. So let's go back into the pivot table. So yeah, I drag the country sold to into the filters section, and it gives me a country sold to filter, which again only affects this pivot table. So I can click the filter button and I can say, let's have a look at the sales to France. And it changes the numbers to show me revenue per product for sales to France. I could then change that to UK. If I wanted to be able to see more than one country, I'd have to put a tick in that box there, and then I can select the countries that I'm interested in. But by default, it only lets me select one country. And then I can select all to put it back. And it only affects that one pivot table. So if I wanted the ability to be able to filter all 3 pivot tables by country, which very often you do when you're building a dashboard, you've got a number of pivot tables, and you want to be able to filter all pivot tables in the same way. So that would mean dragging in the country sold to into the filters section for every pivot table. Not only does that mean you've got 3 times as much work if there's 3 pivot tables, but when you come to set a filter, so we want to be able to see the revenue per product and the number of orders per product and the revenue per month for a particular country, let's say for Japan. So we choose Japan there, then we choose Japan there, and then we choose Japan there. So obviously there is a lot of work to set those filters. And then if you want to clear the filters, you've got to set that back to all, and you've got to set that back to all, and you've got to set that back to all. And if you did want to look at more than one country, so let's say I wanted to look at the Asia Pacific area, I'd have to then remember to tick that and just choose the Asia Pacific countries. And unfortunately it doesn't tell you which countries you've selected, it just says multiple items. Even if you hover over it, it doesn't actually tell you. So and of course you'd have to repeat that process for all the pivot tables. So to me it's just a little bit messy. I mean, it works, but it's just a little bit messy. So let's clear the filters from each of those pivot tables. Literally just go to the pivot table and drag the filter away. So I've done that to all three pivot tables. So that's where slicers come in. Slicers basically are a 21st century version of the filter that I've just shown you. They are modern, they are colourful, they are flexible. So let's say I wanted to create a slicer and have that slicer attached to all three pivot tables. And that's the first benefit of the slicer over those individual filters, that you can attach one slicer to all the pivot tables. So to do that, there's a couple of ways you can do it. One way is to just find a blank cell and select Insert Slicer, which is over there, and then choose, is it connections in this workbook? No, it's not. I don't think you choose any of those actually. And the data's not in the data model, so it's not actually going to let me do that. That only works if you've got the data stored in the data model, which we haven't, and I'll cover the data model another week. So actually the only way to do it in this particular case is to pick one of the pivot tables. It doesn't matter which pivot table you pick, because eventually all three pivot tables will be connected to the one slicer. So I'll just pick the first one, and then with that pivot table selected, go to Analyze, Insert Slicer. Choose the column, the field that you want to attach the slicer to. So if I'm trying to replicate where I dragged country into the filters section, I'll tick country. You can have more than one of these ticked and have more than one slicer. Click OK, and there's the slicer. It always sticks the slicer bang in the middle of the sheet, and you can move it. So unlike the filter I showed you before, which has to go directly above the pivot table, the slicer can go anywhere at all. So you can literally just drag and drop it anywhere. Now that slicer is only connected to that pivot table. So the way it works is that as you click the buttons, which are like the tick boxes in the old slicer, the old filter, it just applies a filter to that pivot table. If I want to clear the filter, click the Clear Filter button, and that puts it back to showing you all of the countries. And if you want to select more than one country, then just click on the first country that you want to select and hold the Control key down as you click the other countries. And then when you let go of the Control key, it applies the slicer. But because it's visual, you don't have that problem of seeing multiple items and not actually knowing which ones you've selected. So let's clear that. You can also resize the slicer, which is quite handy if you want to clear the scroll bar. If you've not got too many buttons, you can also make it wider. The only time I'd make it wider is if I want to have more than one column of buttons, otherwise it looks a bit silly. So if you want more than one column of buttons, go up to the slicer menu and change the columns, and then you can actually have the buttons in multiple columns. Just saves a bit of space like that, and you can position that slicer anywhere you like. So again, you click the buttons. It's still only affecting this pivot table. I've not wired it up to the other pivot tables yet, which I'll do in a second. You can also change the color. So again, select the slicer. Let's just bring it down a little bit. Select the slicer, go to the slicer menu, and you've got all these colors. You can, if you really want to, create a new slicer style. But I'm just going to stick with one of the ones that comes with it. And if I want to change that text, just go to the slicer caption. So something like that.
Question.
Yeah, Kim's just said, would you ever use a filter over a slicer? I don't think I would, Kim. Once you've seen a filter, a slicer, it's what do they say? If I've never seen so rich as I could live with being poor. So no, I don't think I'd ever go back to filters. The other thing with slicers is you can hook them up to stuff in the data model and do all kinds of great things with them, which I can show you over the coming weeks. So no, I don't think I would. To me, slicers are filters are kind of old school. They're great, they were great before slicers came in, but I don't think I'd ever go back to them. So you can change the caption there, as I say. And then the other thing to mention is, how do you hook it up to the other pivot tables? Well, for that, you've got to know that each pivot table has a name. So if I click into this first pivot table and then go over to the Analyze tab, this is pivot table 1. If you want to change the pivot table names, you can do. That one is pivot table 4, and that one is pivot table 2. It just depends on the order that you create them. And if you delete a pivot table and then recreate it, it just gives it the next number. So we've got 1, 4, and 2. If I click on the slicer and click on where's it gone? Slicer report connections, then it shows you all the pivot tables in this file, and it shows you the name of the pivot table and the sheet. Luckily, there's no other sheets in this file that have got pivot tables on, so all I need to do is tick those 2 boxes. That one was already ticked because that was the pivot table that the slicer was already attached to. Click OK. So now as you click the buttons, it's actually applying the slicer to all 3 pivot tables. And if you had charts connected to those pivot tables, they would update as well. Okay, so that is slicers. The other thing that I said I would show today was calculated columns. So let's say, for example, you need to calculate how much tax you're going to pay. And the tax is, let's keep it simple, the tax is 10% of the revenue. One option is just to go to here, put a heading that says tax, obviously format it so it's the same as that, so it looks like it's part of the pivot table, but column C is actually outside the pivot table. And then just do a formula which says B8 multiplied by 10%, and then copy that formula down. That's simple enough. And then I want to do another one over here, so I'm going to do tax. I'm not going to do a tax here because this is quantity sold. This is nothing to do with revenue, but I'll do a tax there. I'll copy the formatting across and then do a formula which says is it J8? Yeah, J8 multiplied by 10%, and copy that down. So we can see how much tax we're having to pay for each product, and also how much tax we're going to have to pay per month. Doing it that way, it's straightforward, but it's a little bit on the messy side. For a start, you've got loads of formulas here and here, and the more formulas you have in a file, the longer the bigger the file is, the longer it can take to update. But the other thing is that the tax is not part of the pivot table. So if I selected the product names, the revenue and the tax, and said create me a chart from that data, it doesn't actually include the tax in that chart. So you can't compare amount of tax against amount of revenue, because part of that data was inside the pivot table, part of it was outside the pivot table. So, and it only creates the chart from the stuff inside the pivot table. So yeah, doing it that way is sort of the quickest way to do it. But then you find yourself further down the line with problems. So instead of doing it that way, I'm going to do it as a calculated column. And to do that, just pick one of the pivot tables, doesn't matter which, and then click on Analyze Fields Item Sets Calculated Field. Give the field a name, call it tax, and then enter the formula. So instead of it being B8 times 10%, it's revenue, which I can put in the formula by double clicking, revenue times 10%. But you're not just limited to simple formulas. You can do fairly complex ones. You can do ifs and all that kind of stuff. So I'll click on OK. There's already data in there. Do I want to replace it? It thinks there's data in column C, so I'll just replace it. And there we go. I've lost the formatting, so I'll have to copy that across. But that now is not formulas. You can see that that is just numeric values because the calculations are done behind the scenes, and that is part of the pivot table, which means I can go and create a chart, and I do actually get the revenue against the amount of tax because it's now treating column C as part of the pivot table. And if I then wanted to get the tax per month, I just go to this pivot table and just drag tax into the values section. So once you've built the calculated field, it's then available to be used in any pivot table in this file. Okay, are you ready, or do you want me to carry on?
I'm fine.
Okay, well that is...
Does that mean 104 next week?
I don't know what next week is. I will tell you next week.
Oh, so it's going to be a surprise.
When you least expect it.
Yes.
Yes.
That's pretty much what mine's going to be like. Am I ready? Yeah, everything's kind of there. After a fashion. Right, let me do that. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. Doesn't mean it is, of course, but never mind, because there's quite a few slides on this, and anything could happen. Right, we'll do that, and then we'll switch back from you. So, if we've got no questions, we'll carry on.
Oh, hang on. Zorba's just put a question. Can you get different kinds of charts? Yes, you can, Zorba. There are pie charts, there are bar charts, there are line charts, there are donut charts, there are bubble charts, there are histogram charts, there are Pareto charts. So, yes.
And you'll show charts at some point.
Yeah, well, I did a whole session on charts. I'll stick the after hour numbers in the chat.
Right, okay.
I could revisit charts, couldn't I?
You could definitely revisit charts because they all look different. Right, excitement. Much excitement. We have a new series starting, and this one is going to be quite long. Oh, it could turn into an Ocean 2020. It could be Scrivener 2020 because I've had lots and lots of questions about it. So this week is all about, I'm assuming you know nothing. And even if you do know a little bit, I'm hoping that you'll see something that you didn't know. So fingers crossed on that one. So it's going to be an introduction to creating content with Scrivener. Now, I haven't said writing a book, a novel, or anything else either, because Scrivener can be used for all different kinds of content. And I use it for books, I use it for lots of different things, which I will be talking about as we go through this. So it can be any kind of content. It doesn't matter if it's just a kind of letter with 3 different themes in it, right through to a magnum opus where it's, a 7-book series. What didn't come out well on this slide, and I tried to fix it and it wasn't having it. If you look at the top right hand corner, Mac and Windows and iOS. But when I tried making those shapes a different colour, it didn't like it at all. Not at all. But it is going to be cross-platform. So it doesn't really matter what platform you've got, we can get going with it. Kim says, I know nothing, so that works great for me. Well, we'll take it right from the top. Because even if you do know a bit, you're probably using it in quite a narrow way. And it's such a broad application, it's amazing. So, first of all, what is Scrivener? Well, it's an application for writers, but it's much, much more than a traditional single application. So I would say it's a writer's studio, a writer's toolkit, But think of it as a Swiss Army knife for writers, because it goes much beyond the basics of what comes out at the end. So I wrote this article or I wrote this book. At the point you're starting the process, you've got so much more information flying around. So what was life like before Scrivener? It wasn't good. It really wasn't good. So why Scrivener's so amazing is best explained by looking back at life before Scrivener. So before Scrivener, when it came to writing, it tended to be monolithic writing, meaning you started at the beginning and you carried on writing until you got to the end. Never needing to do anything like change a character's name halfway through. Never needing to reorganise anything. So if you think about a scene in a book or a paragraph in an argument or a few lines in a blog post, that you never needed to reorganise it all. Now, I don't know what your life's like, but mine's not like that. I don't write like that. I can't write like that. I tend to start my writing with a mind map, and ideas come to me in all kinds of order, not necessarily the one that I'd like to finish in. Microsoft Word is your friend if you want to write in that monolithic style, and many writers do use it, and it has become a standard both in terms of written content but also in terms of content that's being reviewed. So Microsoft Word had its place and it was great for that kind of stuff, but not necessarily at the point that you're formulating the ideas in your mind. Like I've said, I don't know about you, but when I'm writing or I'm creating content, I'm putting slides together, my mind is a maelstrom of ideas and they will not arrive in an orderly manner. They will not queue patiently waiting for me to get around to capturing them in a neat linear way. There's no way they will do that. And the danger for me is that I'll have this idea and it'll be like, oh yeah, I want to put a slide in the Scrivener section. And then I'll say to myself, yes, but you can't do that because you're in the week at MacBites headquarters. But I know that if I don't, by the time I come round to the Scrivener section, I'm going to be thinking I had a good idea and I can't remember what it was. So I need to capture it somewhere that it's in the right place, or at least discoverable from the right place. Now, the way that Word works is it's a single file. So the management of your content, the long form text content, it would be in a single file. But what do? Do you create separate files for separate chapters? What do you do? And digital hadn't caught up with analog, but Word did offer an option, and that was multiple files to manage your content. So in that case, you could have chapter 1 in one file and chapter 2 in another. And there's a thing called long documents, isn't there, Mike? It doesn't end well. No, Word is supposed to handle that. You have a master document and you have sub-documents, and the sub-documents would be your chapters. But Word gets confused on a regular basis. So while it's possible, it's not the best way to work. Also, if you ask a group of content creators, what's the most important application feature? What's the feature that would help them most in their writing or their creative endeavours? You'd probably get 1,000 different suggestions. And there's a good reason for that. Everybody works in a different way. So for me, colour coding's important. Keywords much less so. Labels are important. I like the corkboard concept. I do need to produce HTML. So just looking at a few of those words, some are much more important to me than others. And for other people, they will be just as clear as to what's important to them, but it won't be the things that are important to me. Scrivener provides many options that you don't have to give a second thought to if you don't need to use them. So there is the ability to add a piece of content. Hanging off that piece of content, you can have notes, research, links, metadata, keywords, labels, status, obviously a word count for just that chunk of it, but you can put comments on it, you can create drafts from it, revisions of it. So you might have 4 different revisions of it. You might rewrite it on a device and then think, do you know what? I preferred it before. So All these pieces of information enable you to work with your content in manageable blocks, whilst at the same time hanging extra meta information off it that you can use or reference as you're writing the actual content. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I look at those. The notes for me are critical, but I'm not writing a book, but the notes are critical. Links less so. Keywords I hardly use. Labels I use. Status I use. Not particularly concerned about the word count, but it's there. Hardly ever use comments because I'd be commenting to myself. And by the time something gets into Scrivener, for me, it's virtually finished. So I don't particularly leave comments for myself. Draft versions and revisions. Yes, I've done that. Footnotes and endnotes, again, I don't tend to use because there's not much point in putting an endnote on an email. But I'm glad it's there. The synopsis, critical. That's how Mike and I communicate with each other through Scrivener. Seeing the outline of the content is brilliant because you can reorganise by all of these as well. The structure and the targets. If you are writing and you need it to be a certain number of characters, like Ship 30 for 30, where it's 250 to 300 words, then that's going to be important to you to have a target set. But basically, there's a lot of features, but all you need to remember, it's critical to remember, they all exist referring to one single unit of content. It's not, oh, good grief, there's 900 features and I can't remember how each one integrates. And all of them relate to a single piece of content. So no single piece of content or writing exists in isolation from the information about it. You write a paragraph, you write a scene, you write a chapter, and there's information about that content that you need to retain, but it's not part of the content. You don't want part of the content to be the word count. You don't want to scribble yourself a few notes in a synopsis, and again, it be part of the content. So all of these features are not part of the content. They're in addition to the content. These are the tools that Scrivener provides you with to enable you to produce the best content you've ever created. Scrivener was initially available for Mac only, and the developer wasn't even a developer when he started. He wanted an app like Scrivener, and there wasn't an app like Scrivener. So he decided he'd write it then, and he did. So not even being a developer, he taught himself how to develop for the Mac, but not Windows. He determined it wasn't going to be available for Windows, and he got that question multiple times a day. Obviously now it is available for Windows. So he got developers involved that developed for Windows. The two versions finally, 15 years on, have some degree of parity between them. It also arrived for iOS in 2016. Now, if you think about when the iPad came out, which was 2010, it took 6 years of development to get this onto an iPad, and people were asking from day one. But he won't develop it unless it's right. He doesn't go for quick, he goes for right. And the iOS version is very, very good. I wouldn't say it's got full feature parity, but it's very, very good. So as I've said, it's not just about novels, which is what everybody thinks. I don't use it that way. I've never written a novel. I have written training manuals with it. I have written shorter form articles that have been published with it. I use it in really weird ways because I write emails in it. So if you are on my VIP list, you will have got an email about 18 hours ago. And that was the mail that you got. And it's written in Scrivener. That one was today's. You can see on the left-hand side where the binder is, I've got all the mails that I've sent. So every mail I've sent in the last 6-7 years is in there. It doesn't look identical to what you see in your inbox. There's no branding on it. There's no sign-off on it. There's a button at the bottom that's sometimes green and it says, click here to join the live session. It's not a button in here. But it is when it's exported from here, when it's compiled from Scrivener. So when it's compiled, it will look, this is MacBites 103, it will look something like that. It will have the branding on it. It will have levels of headings in it. It will have the images in it, multiple images in that one. Oh yes, renovations, that was a while back. And then at the bottom, it's got all of the connect with us stuff and things like that on it too. So all of that comes from Scrivener, all of it. That's actually quite simple now. The complicated part of that was the compile. But it's quite simple now to use it. Much more complicated was creating whole courses in Scrivener. So this is much longer form of content. This is more akin to a novel that you might create in it. There's so many elements to manage when you're creating a course, especially if you're making it for somebody else, because at that point you don't just have to please yourself. You've got to do it in a way that the person, company or other entity requires. So I created some courses for Envato and they wanted it done in a certain way. So there were courses about Pixelmator and there was very specific requirements when it came down to the documentation required to support the course. Now, obviously, the course was video-based. So what on earth was in Scrivener? Well, in Scrivener was the management of the course. So there was one course per file. And in the binder on the left, which is the contents, each one of those was, I had a folder for each section and a single document for each video. But I managed everything in Scrivener. I did the course content, I did the content creation, I created the data in there, I created a recording schedule in there, I tracked the progress, and what you're actually looking at is a numbers spreadsheet that was embedded to calculate the times. So I knew how long each video was, and I knew what the cumulative time of the course was. So you can see at the top it started at 2 minutes 5, and then I've got a video of like 10 minutes at number 9, and that took it to 1 hour 56, and I had to keep an eye on that. So that was actually embedded in Scrivener. So Scrivener was the single place that I went to. And that's what the final thing actually looked like. So it's got, I'll take you through the interface when we see it, but there's 4 sections to what you're looking at. You've got the list on the left, which is called the binder. And then you've got this double view. It's a split view. So think of how an iPad works with split view. Only here, what you're doing is you're viewing 2 parts of the same Scrivener file to give you a completely different view of your content. Everything that you see in there was no text anywhere else. And what I mean by that is, I put everything in there, and when I'd done, I pushed a button, and that button produced a file that was loaded straight into Envato Tuts Plus, and they didn't need to do anything, I didn't need to do anything. All of that text came straight out of Scrivener. It did take a while to create the compile setting, but if you're producing courses like that on a regular basis, how much time have you saved by investing that little bit of time at the beginning to be able to do that? So I also created my own course and put that up. Obviously, iBooks Author on the way now, but I put an entire course together. That one I only did have to please myself, but I still had lots of things to do in terms of tracking it, because that one was 11 hours and there was 11 major sections that I needed to track. Some things couldn't be finished until I waited for something else, but everything was tracked inside there. And looking at it even now, I think, how would you have coped if you didn't have Scrivener? What would you have used? Now obviously today we've got Notion, which is a possible. But I've looked at Notion for doing that, and I must admit, I can still go back to Scrivener, because Notion can't compile out in different formats. It can give you a card-based view with pretty graphics on it, can do all of that, and it can probably track the metadata. But you can't just grab, I could grab an entire course there, say the part 2, creating iBooks author templates, I could just grab the whole of that and export it independently, and I can't really do that in Notion. So that's course creation with it. Now what I want you guys to do as you're looking at this, and I'm saying I've done this with it and I've done that with it, if you particularly want to deep dive on that particular thing that I've done with it, then let me know. Right, the next thing that I did with it was MacBites. Now finally we came to Scrivener. After trying virtually every other system out there. And we moved when we did MacBites 79, which was bar humbug. I moved the entire podcast creation process over to Scrivener and never looked back. Now, obviously, I don't mean the audio. I mean all of the meta that's needed to create a MacBites. So this is a screenshot of the MacBites file as of lunchtime today, I think. Everything is in there. Everything. So with that, stuff goes in here. Stories are added to it. We produce from here a set of recording notes and we sit down and record it. That is definitive when Mike says to me, did we ever cover X? I come back to here and this has actually got in it the recording notes for every episode of MacBites ever. We did used to use other systems, many of them, and we only changed when they died. So we had Google Notebook, that was fabulous, it died. Then we went to Etherpad, that was fabulous, it died. Then we went to Google Wave, don't talk about Wave, I still get upset, it died. We eventually ended up at Google Documents, Google Docs. Oh, it was horrible. Trying to move a story around. So if you look on the right hand side here, we've got the order that we did stuff. If we wanted to move the Safari redesign up the chat bytes and we were in Google Docs, it was horrible. It was like you've left a line behind. Well, where did that line come from? I've no idea. There was no delineation between the stories at all. Whereas in Scrivener, this is what makes the difference between getting the show out and not getting the show out. We also, when I said there are different areas, if you look over here where we've got notes, and the interface will make more sense when I've gone through it, but I'm just showing you that we use the notes to put the content that goes on the blog. So when we publish the post in relation to the show, all of that goes with it. Now, it's in that syntax that you see because it's markdown. And when I produce it out, the website obviously needs HTML, not Markdown. But that is what compile is for, and that's when you get that. That's what comes out of it.
Question.
Yeah, I'll look at that in a sec.
Okay.
That's what you get when you push the compile button. When you take that and you put that into a web browser, the web browser interprets it and displays it looking like that. And we don't have to do a thing. We really don't have to do a thing. So, Zorba's saying, how do you get the images on the cards? To the right of the binder. Let's have a look. To the right of the binder. So, are we talking all of the cards there? That's really straightforward. I will show you how I do that. But it's really straightforward. When you're looking at that view, you have 3 different views that you can have. And that view is showing you the cards, the card view. If you look up in the top right-hand corner, I've actually clicked on there for the synopsis of 140. So the image that you see on the card there is exactly the same image that's up here in the top right-hand corner. And all I did was drag and drop an image onto that card. I will show you how to do that. Okay, so we were at this point. You don't have to do a thing with it. Right, so let's have a look at... It's available for Mac, it's available for Windows. And I've mentioned it's available for iOS. You might be wondering what on earth Dropbox has got to do with it. Dropbox is the way that all of those versions talk to each other. So you can edit the same file on Mac, then on Windows, then on iOS. Notice I've said then, not at the same time. It has to be in a sequence. You cannot even have a file open on the Mac and Windows and or iOS at that point. Dropbox is the sole provider, the sole cloud service that Literature and Latte, who make Scrivener, support. Now, a lot of people were up in arms at the beginning when they announced that because they wanted it to work with iCloud. And the fact is, it just doesn't. It's not recommended. You might get it to work, but if you then lose data, they're going to say to you, well, it's not supported, so don't use it. So I must admit, I thought, oh, does it matter? Does the service really matter? But I will say with Dropbox, it's the fact you've got to close things down before you can open them up again, and it has to manually synchronize, which I will take you through. But just be aware, if you want to set this up at the end of this session, I will show you what you need to do to actually set it up to synchronize. But we will be starting with the Mac version, but fear not, we have the Windows version as well. So, do we have any questions while I go into this? Have you got any more? Renee's
no.
horrified.
Yeah, Renee's horrified. Carol says compile sounds like magic.
Compile is incredible, it really is. Right, so we're looking at the file that we've just been talking about. It looks different because I've had to make the screen smaller, so it looks much smaller than that. Right, I probably have in here some files that don't have images in, but that image there, you have two different views for this. That's a card, and it can flip round. So at the top, we've got a little icon. You can flip it round. That's what it normally looks like, and you put text in it. Like this bit here. You can see the text. Well, that text isn't in there, but you can see the text. But if you push the button, it flips it round and it shows you any image that you've added. If you don't have an image on a card, so there is no image on a particular card, then you can just drag and drop one in. So it's really straightforward. So I've got 3 files open. I'm not really intending to look at this MacBites one because it's quite extensive. But just to show you, when I say it's got every MacBites in it, all of these on the left-hand side are the shows with the show title, going back to 79. Jonathan even got his very own episode once. He'd just got a new car and it had CarPlay. So there is a little separate episode welcoming Jonathan's new car. So Bar Humbug is as far back as we've used this file. The archive is the rest of them. So 78 all the way back to episode 1. And they are PDFs. So I've kept them separate. They don't look anything like the ones since then, but they're enough if I do a search. If I do a search and I'm looking for something, I will find it, even if it's in these PDFs. So we just call that the archive. Not particularly to do with any kind of date, just to do with the fact they're not actually Scrivener files in there. They're PDFs. So that's what we've got in there. But I'm going to start with an empty file. That would be a good idea. So I'm going to get that out of the way. I don't particularly need that either, do I? I was looking for something. Right, so in Scrivener, we go to File, and it isn't really an individual file, it's a project. So when you make a Scrivener project, the first thing I suggest you do is work through this interactive tutorial. This actually is not you opening the tutorial with what I'm about to do now. This is actually creating an instance of it. So it says open, but when I open it, it is going to pop up this. Oh, please tell me you'll let me put that on the other screen or no one's going to see it. There we go. Right, it explains it's an interactive project that will work you through the features and you're actually going to do stuff in this file. So I'll say yes. That will then prompt me to put that tutorial somewhere. So in this case, it's trying to save it to the comms file, but we'll put it in the data for 140 and we'll put that it's the Scrivener tutorial. And what it will do is create a completely new Scrivener file for you. And if it could work out, I wanted it on this screen, we'd be doing well. So this is probably the first Scrivener file, if you've never used it before, that you'll probably encounter. So what we're actually looking at here is relatively straightforward. It might not look it, but it is. So I'm just going to fold this up over here. Right. You've obviously got tools across the top, which will make more sense when you know what they can actually do. So I'm just going to talk you through what you've got in terms of. This is a fairly straightforward file. Most of the templates that you use, where you say File New Project, will create something at least similar to this. So first thing you've got is the binder on the left-hand side, which is that area there. It would be, if that would come back on. That's the binder. The binder is your navigation. It's a hierarchical structure. Then it has certain folders in it. So obviously this one says Start Here. What you select in the binder determines what you see in the main area. The main editing area being here. So whatever you've got selected over here, like the key concepts, what's in the middle will change. Now, this is a scrivening or a document. They use the terms interchangeably. I must admit, I say scrivening. And that way, if I'm talking to Mike about it and saying, yeah, I did 3 scrivenings on that, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Where if I say document, I could mean a text file or something else. And then what you've got in here is basically the equivalent to what you would have in Word. The power of Scrivener is you're not limited to that one area and everything has to go into it. It's separated into individual chunks of content in the binder on the left-hand side. So we've seen a start here, we've seen key concepts. Then you have this folder called draft. And it actually has, if you look at it, a rather unique icon. It looks like a white page with a blue stripe down it. A draft folder is a special kind of folder. There are things that you cannot put in a draft folder. You can't just drag and drop an image into it. It's content separated out into individual folders like these, and then you can drill down and go down as deep as you want. So it is a structure, but this draft is a special folder when you come to compile. Now, I tend not to use the draft folder because I have multiple folders, usually at the top level. It wouldn't make sense for one of them to be the draft folder and not any of the others, because you can only have one draft folder. So just to show you what I mean by that, one of mine, was it the email generator or was it this one? In this one, the drafts folder is MacBites. It's at the top level. In this one, it's not used at all. It's used as a separator. So there's nothing in it. So if I click on, oh, where's that come from? Is there something in there? Shouldn't be something in there. I folded those up into it. That's right. That's my GDPR thing. But I'm not using it. It's just a separator. I'm not actually using that at all. So draft folder, important. If you are writing a novel, if you are writing a training manual, it might make sense to use the draft folder and make whatever is in the draft folder part of the output. So the entire book, the entire training manual, the entire course, whatever it is that you're creating, put that in the draft folder. Or just use a standard folder. It doesn't make a difference as long as you know what you're doing. But that's what the draft folder is actually for. What they've done with this book, then, this training manual, is there's the basics. And within the basics, there is getting oriented to it, getting organised, get it out there, get going with it. What we're looking at now, because that's just changed, the centre bit now has cards on it. That's because the centre part can have completely different views. It can have, if I take that off, these 3 buttons are the views. When none of them are pushed in, you've just got the absolute basics, which is anything that is in that item there. So for instance, if I click on binder, that's what's in it. The basics does not have any text in it. So if I add some text to the basics section, then it will appear in there. That text lives in that item. Obviously in here, they don't want any text in there, not needed. But they have put a synopsis up there about it. Well, why put it up in the synopsis? Why not put it in the basics? And that's because, generally speaking, although this is configurable, if it's in here, it'll be part of the export. It'll be part of the compile. If it's in the synopsis, generally it won't. Same if it's in the notes. Generally, it won't be exported. It won't be compiled. That's where you put your notes to yourself, or you put what's going to be in this part, or you automatically generate a synopsis. But if this bit in the middle is blank, when you compile and that basics option comes out of the compile, there won't be any content, no matter how much content you put in the synopsis or the notes. Now, as I've said, hold that thought, because there are ways to work around that, but generally speaking, that is the general rule of how you would work. So in the next bit, there's absolutely nothing. It's just acting as a folder. There's no text it's going to output, there's no synopsis, and there's no notes either. Then you come down to something that's actually got content. And if we compiled this, you would find that that would come out with it. Then you can drill down even more and you've got information about using the binder and using the editor. So all of the content that is then in here is the content of the book, which is their manual. This is the manual for Scrivener, and obviously it's written in Scrivener. Right, everything under the basics, you have multiple levels under the basics. So if I fold these up, you have the top level, which is the book. You then have a section called the basics, and within the section you've got 4 chapters. Within some of those you've got pages. Within others, is it this one? It drills down even more. And you can keep going if you want. So this is the entire structure, the physical structure of what it is you are creating is in the binder on the left hand side. Right, that's the drafts folder. You then have the research folder. Now the research folder is where you put content you want to refer to. You don't want it lost, but you want it in here separate from what you're going to compile. So there is a folder that says sheets. So within that, there is a character sheet and a location sheet. There's also a picture, which says it's a sunset, and then a PDF about a spacewalk, and then an audio file by the look of it that says this is Buzz Aldrin. Now, the sheets themselves are if you were writing a novel. Now, obviously, this is not a fiction book. Well, we hope not, because it's the manual. But if it's a fiction book and you have characters in it, then it would be nice to have a sheet that is basically a form for you to fill in information about each individual character. And likewise, that's what this location sheet is for. So you give the thing a name, the place, you give it a name, and then you put down all of this information. And the idea is, if you're then writing about this particular location, you can come back and you can think, oh yeah, I had an idea that it smelt like fish because it was near the fishmongers. And it's the idea is that it then reminds you, and you don't make a mistake with something like that, which sounds like you wouldn't make a mistake with something like that. But I once did some fanfic, didn't I, Mike?
You did.
Oh, I did. It was grand.
I enjoyed that.
It was a long time ago. And a character had a briefcase. And could I keep track of this briefcase? Was the briefcase on the desk or was it on the floor? And I constantly had to go back with where did I leave this briefcase in the last scene? It was ridiculous. So those things are quite handy for those kind of roles. To see that in action, if we bring back A Christmas Carol, which is one that I've already done, we have here a dual view. But we have over here characters, these being all the characters. And as I click into each one of these here, Ebenezer Scrooge, Bob Cratchit, these are all, and I have actually filled some of these in. Jacob Marley. Who else did I put in there? Oh, lots about Peter Cratchit as well. So you can come back and add to this. Yeah, maybe if I could spell as well. Now, that's the characters. There's also places. So if I open up the places, we've got Scrooge's office, we've got the house, Fezziwig's where the ball was, the place of business, Bell's house, and so forth. So you take the time and you describe it. Now you can also see in here, we don't have a draft folder. It's called manuscript. But it is the draft folder. We can tell that because of the icon. So that's the kind of thing that you can do with these things that you've got in here that have only just been added. And you think, well, what's that for? You duplicate them or make a template of them and they become part of your research. Now, the other stuff we've got in here is a picture for the sunset. You'll see that that does come over here in the synopsis, but you can, again, flip that round. You've got the spacewalk info, which is a PDF. And you've got an audio or video file. That's an audio file. And it will actually play in here. Now, the only caveat I've got with using the research folder in here, I don't. If we look at this PDF, we can open it in an external editor. But I put all of those MacBites show notes in, didn't I? And then I decided I'd export them. And I was hoping it was going to be as simple as dragging and dropping it out. Short version, it's not. It's not. So, because of that, I don't want to add in 30 PDFs and then not be able to get them out. I can get them out by right-clicking and saying open in an external editor and then resaving it, but life's too short. So I actually put my research in DevonThink, where it's quite happy, and so am I. But that's just me. You've got the same issue with this audio file. It's great to get them in. It really is. It's getting them out again that's the issue. If you don't need to get them out, fine. But just a pro tip, if you do, don't bother. Use something else. So back to what we've got in here. So we've got the binder, the middle bit being the canvas that you work on, but doesn't always look the same. So at the moment, I don't have any of these buttons pushed in. So it's just the basics. But I could click that, and what will happen now is, now I've got some text, and I've got some dotted lines. What's all this about? That bit is the basics over there with no text. The dotted line is a separator. The next bit is the get oriented there. Again, no content. On the main interface, there is some content. So with that selected, all I'm then seeing is the text in there. But I can see that if I click on the top one, with the first button pushed in, I just see everything. It just scrolls through it, just like Word would. But wherever you see a dashed line, there's one. This is somewhere else over here. So if I click in there, we can see that's actually in the inspector, the basics inspector. It's that one. And if I carry on going down and just randomly stop and click somewhere, this one will light up over here to show me that's actually the editor view mode. And if I choose to click on that, what I'll then see is only the text that's in that one, not the rest of the text. So that's the first button. The second button gives us the corkboard. People got very, very excited about the corkboard when Scrivener first came out, just because it can enable you to organise content. So if you're at the point of, I'm trying to organise this content, you can move stuff around on the corkboard. You actually have different views of it. This is the standard corkboard. But down at the bottom, you have options. So you can keep the cards arranged in binder order on a grid, which is what we've got. But you've also got a freeform corkboard. And in here, you can have that totally different if you want. So we've got 4 items, and the 4 items are, let's fold them up so you can see, it's those 4 items that we've got there. So at the moment, they are sort of in the right order. But if I wanted to put that over there, and I wanted to kind of indicate to myself some kind of stepping stone between them, I can do. If I want that over here, because I'm going to think about that later, and put these over there, I can do all of that. This is totally freeform. Now, the thing then is that what I want? I'm not actually sure about that. You do have a commit button, and the commit button will change the order over here if you've moved it in there. So I can quickly flick back to that one, that's the right order. But when I come in here, it remembers what I've done with it, but I'm not committing it unless I click that button to reorder what's in the binder. So there's more than one clipboard. Renee says, in the freeform mode, can you link ropes between various notes? There is a way to do that. It's one of the other different views you've got, which is here. You have this view, but this relies on some of the metadata. So probably not in the way that you're talking about. You can show things over time in a certain way, but not that kind of view. We'll probably take a sidestep and look at CLICKABLE, which is also from Literature and Latte. And that is the one where you have links between things and you can import into Scrivener from that, but not in a free-form way that you mean, but you can do it with what we've got here. But we'd need more metadata to be able to work with that. So just hold on to the thought that it might do what you want. It's going to depend. The last option we've got here is the number of cards. So if we quickly whip back into the standard cards, we can see we've got 3 across there. Oh, Renee meant like a murder board. I wonder what he's got in his mind. No, not in that kind of way, no. You might get something similar that would work for you with the metadata, but not as flexible and as freeform as you're talking about, no. So in here, you've got what you want this to actually look like. So you can decide what the card size is and what the ratio of the card is and how much spacing there is between the cards. You actually get to determine all of that. How many cards you want across. So if you want 4 cards across, or you only want 2 cards across. So if you want to see a lot more of the information on the card, if you're using the synopsis, because what you see on here is the synopsis, you can do that. You've also got keyword chips, which we haven't got any keywords, but when we do, they'll start filling in down the side and everything will be colour-coded. So it's going to take a good couple of weeks to go through the interface, to be honest. So let's turn that back to 3, because 3 is just about right, isn't it? Right, the other area that you've got beyond this, in fact, we've got another view, haven't we? We've got this view, which is the outline view. So what this enables you to do is see what you've got in the binder, but more information about it. So I can go in there, and there is a shortcut, which is Command and 9, and it will open this up. And what you're looking at is you're limiting this to the basics. It's everything that's below the basics in the folder on the left. There is the first folder, there's the second folder. These can be folded up if that's what you want. And there's 4 folders in there. You also in there have some text, which is this bit here. There's a little bit of text. Some have it, some don't. So the corkboard doesn't, the outliner doesn't, the Scrivenings doesn't. So when we click on this, there's no text below it. But this one, there is, and this one, there is. And what you're seeing below that is the synopsis. So for instance, the corkboard doesn't have one, but the editor view does, and the splitting the editor view does. But if we went back and you're working over here, and you suddenly decide with the corkboard, you want to make a note about the corkboard. So let's say I want to remind myself, or ask a question. Can you still set the background of the corkboard to be real cork? So there's a question for myself. I don't know the answer to that. Used to be able to. You probably can. It's probably in the preferences. But I've put it as a question in the synopsis. The reason I've done that is, if I were to compile this now for my editor, I wouldn't want them to see the questions that I've put to myself. But it's there on the synopsis for me to see. So back to where we were, which was the outline view. Now the corkboard has the question on it. If you don't want to see that, you right click and you say don't show me the synopsis, which gives you a much cleaner outline. But you can have all kinds of things showing. So in this case, I'll put that on. One of the things that I did put on with one of them was numbers. So the numbers aren't in the text, the numbers are just in the outline. You toggle them on, you toggle them off. It's what makes sense for you here. What kind of information makes sense for you? So for instance, we don't have the word count, but we can toggle on the word count in the outline, and then it will give us the word count for each individual document or scrivening, depending on how you're referring to them. So you've got the entire view, you've got the corkboard view with a couple of other options for the corkboard view, and you've got an outline view. What you have with most of mine is that I have a double view. So I'm seeing over here, there was the MacBites mail that went out on Tuesday. I'm actually seeing the mail, but over here I'm seeing what I've got left to send in the week. So this is actually hooked up to last week when we had marooned mails, isn't it? But what I would do is, because it's locked, if we look at that, I've locked it on that, and I haven't updated that for this week. So I'll lock it, unlock it, I will go into there and do the Command and 9 to open it, and then lock it again. And those are what was sent out this week. And you can see I've got a note to myself in the synopsis for this one, which was that mail there, and it says links done, which once they're done, I can delete that, and that disappears from there. And there's another one. The links were done in that one. So I can take that text out. But it's useful for me to just throw it into the synopsis or the notes, because I don't want that to come out in the compile, do I? It's information about my content. It's not actually my content, and I wouldn't want it to be. So I have this dual view. You do not have a dual view in here, but you have this button, which is your dual view. But you'll see it says toggle split view. The line is going through the middle. So if I do that, I get a horizontal split, and I don't want a horizontal split. But you'll notice when you hover that it actually tells you, hold the Option key down, and you will get a different kind of split, the vertical split. And then you can put in each side whatever you want. If I want to compare two totally different bits of the document, I can do that. If I would rather over here see progress, then I could do that. I can toggle off that you don't see the synopsis if it's just progress I'm after. If I'm not interested in the labels and the status and the section type, I can hide them. So I could go in here and just say I don't want to see the label, don't want to see the status. I am interested in the section type, but I'm more interested in the word count. You can configure that to your heart's content. So you can have the middle bit can be split into two. Right, let's have a look. Okay. So the other bit that you've got is over on the right hand side, which is this bit. Some people totally turn that off. I don't know how they live without it, but some people do. Right. It starts off with the notes that you have, which is split into two, the synopsis and the notes. This can actually be folded up if you don't want to use it. The notes can be folded up, which I'll leave them both open. That makes far more sense to me. Now, we had a question about how you get the images in there, which I talked through but didn't actually do it. So, where am I going to quickly find? Let's try the Finder. And where would I quickly have put that? Do you know, if I file things where they were supposed to be, which I do most of the time. I'll tell you what, I've got a test image. Basically, I broke Notion, but they're on the case. So up here, I've got this. I'm going to flip it round, and it says drop an image here. And I happen to have a test PDF, PNG, which I'm just going to drop in. And that's it. I'm done. If I want to see the text of it, I flip it round. If I want to see the image, then I flip it round. So that's just on the back of it, basically. It's not obvious that it can do that, but it can do that. So we've put that bit in there. I don't believe you, Renee. I do not believe it's over your head. No, this is very basic. Right, so that can be your image or it can be your text. And what you use this for, there's no right way and there's no wrong way. There's the way that works for you. When I very first started using Scrivener, I did my usual, which was make a list of the features and then see what's going where and stuff like that. And I came across keywords and I could not find a use for keywords. And instead of using the app with all the other features, I sat there trying to work out what I was going to use keywords for. Until in the end, I thought, do you know what? If you've got no use for them, don't use them. So if there's a feature in here that you're like, I don't know what to put in the notes, then don't put anything in the notes. Leave them alone. When you have a need, the notes will be there. So that's only the first option in this info panel that we have here that you can toggle on and off with the eye. That's the notes section. The next section you've got is document bookmarks. So if you, when you're writing this bit, have some site you want to refer to, you can add them in here as document bookmarks. You can even change what's shown because you also have the ability to add project bookmarks. So you could switch between them. So that's got a project bookmark in it. So two things that you can do in there with that. So down here, you can add an internal bookmark. So if there's something when you're working with this you would like to refer to, probably in the research, maybe you want to refer to this PDF, you do that. And that is now a document bookmark. And I can open that up. It opens it up in a completely separate window, which is grand because I can put it on another monitor and refer to it from within here. The other option that you've got in here is that you can put in external bookmarks. So in the external bookmarks, let's say I want to refer to the MacBites website, which is macbites.co.uk. And now I've got a link to that. All I need to do is double click that and it will open it in a browser for me. So everything that you have in relation to your document can be stored somewhere in Scrivener. I doubt you would find something that there wasn't a place for. But you might decide to tweak it a bit, like I've done, and put it in a particular place for a particular reason. So I'll show you that when we actually look at it, but that's what we've got in there. Then you have the ability in here, it's got general metadata, and the first thing it tells you is when this was created and when it was modified. And you then have the option to include it in the compile or not. So when you do compile this, do you want this bit included or not? Although you can do that, I must admit, managing it from within the meta on the right would be a living nightmare. If you must put content in here that you don't want compiled, then a better way to manage it is to, in an outline view, where we've got including compile, at least that way, because over here you can only change one chunk at a time, one scrivening, one of these documents at a time. You don't get an overall view. So the included in compile, this does give you more of an overview. So if, for instance, you've gone in there and you've taken that out at some point, and then you think, where's the outline in my book? You know, I've compiled it, it's not there. It's probably because you've taken the tick out at some point. But it's easier to go through this view, the outline view, than it is to go through each individual one. That to me is just a better way to work. You also have in here custom metadata, as if there isn't enough metadata to start with. You can create custom metadata. Before you start doing that, think carefully, because the custom metadata applies across the file. So if it's just something for this one scrivening, maybe just put it somewhere else. Don't bother with the custom metadata. The kind of stuff that I might be persuaded to put in there, possibly a show number. I don't bother. I think I've set up one and then changed my mind. But if you do set up something, so maybe you want like, what could you possibly add that would apply to all of it? Let's say you want to track the day you finished it. So not created it, not modified it, the date it was finished. Well, you can set up custom metadata. So first of all, you add a piece of custom metadata. So date finished. Then you choose a type, and one of them, luckily, is a date. You can choose the format. You can create a custom format if you want. We'll leave it set to that and OK it. And then in here, we're in the outliner, remember. I can click on this and I can get a date. So let's say I finished it at that point. When I go to the corkboard, the same custom meta is there, and I can obviously add the same to that. So you only have to create it in one place, and it applies to all of the scrivenings, all of the folders, everything. Again, it's all very well having it locked away in there, useful though that may be, but it's probably a better idea to come up to here, and now it is an option for you to show in the outline. So you've got the date finished over there, and we can hopefully widen that. Can we widen this? It's twanging. Can I? Tell you what, I'll take that one away. This is only because I've got this really tiny at the moment. Let's take the section type away. Awesome. Now I can make that, and I could put the other one back now, just because I've got it very tiny. But again, this is a better way to work. Plus the fact in here, the one downside is you can add it. So if I finish that on the 2nd, I can add it, but the calendar icon doesn't work. So the calendar icon is much better down there, but you can at least see it. So that's custom metadata. Then you've got keywords, and as I said to you, I very seldom find a use for a keyword. Now, having said that, I just have in the email file. So when we go through it, this is only the introduction, remember. But when we go through it, I will show you what I intend to do with the keywords. But with keywords, you can add a keyword. So let's say this is to do with compile. You've got a keyword now of compile. let's say you wanted to add in there emails that you're going to send. You can add keywords. And then you can apply those to elements within here. So they've got keywords with them. It will make more sense used in the right way. So I will show you that in relation to the email file, but you can do that in here. You can add keywords. In this one, you've already got characters and locations and themes. I've added the 2 at the bottom, or you can assign this one. And you can also show the project keywords. So here are the project keywords. You can add them at the top level, or you can add them underneath like that. And you can keep, can we do that? You can keep indenting them as you go, which is particularly useful if you've got a need for that. But what I would say is be careful. It needs to make sense to you. Don't just think the feature's there, so I've got to use it. You don't. But that's what you've got in there. The next option you've got is making snapshots. Snapshots are fabulous. They are fabulous. So you've written this and you think it's about right. What you can do is you can hit the snapshot and it makes a snapshot, and it actually makes a camera sound while you're doing it. It gives you the date and time it was made, and it says on title, but you can title it. So if I was to say, that's me, first draft done. And then you go away and you make some changes. So let's just say in there, I'm going to make some changes. Let's change that font because I can't bear it. Oh, that's much better. Right, this is what we had before. I'll put the basics are very simple, so we've got a text change as well, like that. Then do another snapshot and say that that one is the second draft. And what you've now got is, just by clicking it, down the bottom, you can see your entire scrivening as it was when you made that snapshot. It's a backup copy of it. And you can see the second one. You can even hit the compare button and it will compare the two. So it will show you the differences. Now, obviously this one, I've pretty much changed the entire font, so everything has changed. But in this one, if I decided I was going over here, and let's change that with some colour. All right, the basics are very simple. And again, let's do another backup. So this one is our third draft. Made more changes to that. And you can see down here that this is green. You can go back to the other one and it's not. So if I wanted to compare those two, it should give me some indication that I've changed that. It's possibly the text it's more interested in. Let me grab the first two. And there it is showing you that I added the word very to it. So it's showing you the differences between them. What's fantastic is that now doesn't match, does it? And I've made changes. But that one, that first draft, that was right. That was actually right. So what you can do is hit rollback. Right, it explains what it's going to do, and you'll lose this version. But because you will lose this version, you get the opportunity to take a snapshot prior to rolling it back. So I'll say, yes, do that. It's returned to how it was originally, and I've got a draft of where I was up to. I've got a snapshot of it, should I want to change all that. I think that's just the most amazing feature. Then you've got your comments and footnotes. So any comments you make to yourself or footnotes you want in your documents will go in here. We'll look at that in more detail down the line, or you'll go cross-eyed. Right, other thing that's in here that you may miss is at the bottom. You have labels and you have status. And you can set them for each individual scrivening from down there. Or if you want to set them for multiple ones, so if I wanted synopsis to say, yep, that's done, let's make it red and say that it's the final draft. And then move down to these. And that one's already set to blue and to do. So let's say I say, no, that's green, it's finished, and it's done. Right, then I'm setting the status as we go. You saw that a lot in the stuff I'm doing. So down here, I have sent and sent. You might think that's odd. I want it colour-coded, but I also want to see the word sent. So in mine, I've got the date needs changing. This is an admin thing, that's why it's grey. It's not started, it's in progress, it's ready to schedule, or it's actually in Notion and then it's sent. And I think that's all I have in here. So once it's sent, it's done. And they're colour coded. So this one tomorrow morning, not sent, obviously. Not even started yet. And in my status over here, it's either doesn't have a status at all, it's to do, it's in progress, it's waiting for the poster, the YouTube link, the content, then it's ready to compile, and then it's compiled, and then it gets sent. So I have a lot more detail over here. The colours are only very broad strokes, because if we've got, so let's say this one. So this is going to be some stuff about tomorrow. I've got the beginning and the end, haven't got the middle, and it's not started. I would mark that as work in progress, but where am I actually up to with it? Is it just work in progress, or am I waiting for something? And this one, I'm awaiting the content. So it's useful for me to have two different, it could be work in progress, but it could be standard work in progress. I could be waiting for a poster, a YouTube link, the content, any of those. So any of those four. It's just a little bit more detailed for me, but that's what I do with it, and that's where the colour comes from. You'll notice, however, in here, that's not where the colour came from, because there's no colour. So I'm in the editor view, there's no label, but I'll make it purple. Nothing changes. There's no colour anywhere. And that's because you can turn that on and off. You have a lot of view options where you can fiddle with them and etc. And one of them is to use the label colour and where it's used. So in outlining mode there, let's add some more colour to this. Oh, let's pick some more. Awesome. Right, you turn it on and off with the view. And you can determine in there where it's used. So do you want to see it in the binder? Yep, now I've got dots over here in the binder. You can even in there show us the background colour in the binder, because you can hardly see that. But if you do that, then it covers the text with it. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to using colour in it. So I just thought I would mention that at that point. Right, so we're at the point now, hopefully you've got an idea of where everything is. There are obviously a lot of other options, but they're best explained in relation to doing something. So hopefully you're going to, well, what we'll do is I will pick out some stuff, but if you've got questions and something you specifically want to see, then let me know. Otherwise, you're going to get what I think you want to see. Oh, Carol likes the snapshot feature. The snapshot feature is fantastic. It really is. You can keep that going as long as you like. And, you know, as long as you name them, you've got the date. You will always have the date. But if you name them sensibly, then you can instantly roll back to a certain part or do a comparison between them. It's fantastic. One thing with that is to remember that it's there. So make that part of your workflow so you don't forget that. What I thought we'd do is actually start a file from scratch next time and have a look at that. So what questions have you guys got? I've got something there. I'm going to change my glasses to read it. So let me swap over to that. Renee wants his murder board. There should be a murder board app, you know. There's an echo in here, Tracy. I literally said that. I said that virtually verbatim. I would say Scapple is the nearest to the murder board thing that you're thinking about. I'm just thinking of all the apps I've got. Mind Managers up to a point could do it, but not as effectively as Scapple could do it. But Scapple's quite an odd app. It's also not available for the iPad, unfortunately. So one thing I'll do before we move on, because you know this is a once in a lifetime thing that's going to happen. Don't blink. Right, this is what this looks like on the Mac. But what does this look like on Windows? Oh, she's only gone and done it, you know. There's Windows. There's my Windows. Please note, Mike, nothing on the desktop apart from the recycle bin, and even that's empty. That's me. Right, so I do...
That's because you never use it.
Well, there's that about it as well. I'll have you know everything in here is up to date. Look at that, neat and tidy, or what? everything is up to date. So I've got my Office stuff at the top. I've got my Affinity stuff below that. Got my browsers below that. Seriously need to get Vivaldi on there. But as Mike says, not used much. And then I've got my other apps. You'll notice that the Windows version, despite being bang up to date, has got a different icon. And I can't work out why. Apart from the fact that the one on the Mac is now shaped the way Apple wanted for Biggles. And maybe they've taken the decision they're going to leave that icon alone over there. You'll also notice that I've got Dropbox twice somehow. That's interesting. And Google Drive. So they have to be configured if you're going to get Scrivener to work and you want it to share files. The Google Drive thing is for me saving stuff from my email, so it's instantly available in Windows. So I have both of those set up. But it's Scrivener we're interested in. So I will open Scrivener. It does look a little bit different. But the reason it looks different is Windows and the Mac have totally different development platforms, obviously. If I make this full screen, is there a chance I'm ever going to get out of it, do you reckon, Mike? View full screen. Right, remember that shortcut. Right, so that's what that looks like. That's jolly good. It's sent all the monitors weird now. Oh, good grief, I've got 3 installs of Windows. That's scary. I've actually got 3 Windows monitors now. Oh. Now I can't see a thing. Never mind, it's full screen. The reason it looks different is the way that you develop on a Mac, you get a kit from Apple. And you have components. And those components are not available on Windows. So what Scrivener had to do was rebuild every feature. So you'll notice in here we have the title of the document across the top. And then we have the menu, whereas on the Mac we have the menu glued to the top of the screen. In here we don't. So if I were to take that down, the menu and the title would go with the window. Whereas on the Mac, you always have the menu at the top. That used to drive me mad when I switched to a Mac. And now I'm like with Windows, where's the menu? You do get used to it. But that's what we've got there. Right, then we do have the menu and then we have the toolbar. But it does look a little bit like a prototype in my mind. What I can do here, if we go to File, New Project, what we can do is get the interactive tutorial and open that. We will save that as tutorial. I haven't got all day for this. Documents, that's fine. Stick it in there. So we're actually going to be looking at the same file. But it does look very different. And to me, it looks like a prototype. It's not as pretty. But they've built all of the controls that they need. So in this bit, in the Mac, it's in the middle. So it says start here. That's also where you do your searches from. Then you've got a few buttons. You can edit that. That's the main toolbar. I'm presuming you can edit that. Then these bits you've got with the styles, because it does support styles, and the fonts and all of this. This, again, had to be rebuilt because normally this would be elsewhere, and here it needs to attach to the scrivening window. You've got the binder down on the left-hand side. It works exactly the same way, just looks slightly different with the disclosure triangles. You've got the ability to go dual screen if you want to and see different things. So that still works the same. You've also got the I button so you can bring back the info panel area, and that then works exactly the same, and you can scale that as you want. So there is the ability to put the image behind it if you want, which is a bit silly because we've got the image here, haven't we? I wonder if we could copy and paste that in because we wanted to. It doesn't look like it, although I have pasted it in there, you know. No, it doesn't like it. But it will display it if it's there anyway. You've got the bookmarks, you've got your synopsis, keynotes, general meta and all of the rest of it. You've got the snapshot feature, works exactly the same way. And you've also got the comments and footnotes, again, that works the same way. So I think it's as near as they can get it. You've got your options for these at the bottom as well, all of that. It's as near as they can get it, but I don't know what you think. To me, it's not quite as pretty. It's not quite as polished. But I think that's just purely because Windows does not have the components that you get when you set up as a developer on the Mac platform. But I think they've done a fairly good job with it. Would I like to use that all day, every day? Possibly not. But it's nice to know that if I need to open something on Windows, then I absolutely can. Oh, Carol prefers the Windows icon. Well, that Windows icon was the icon on the Mac until Apple came along with Biggles and declared that, you can do whatever you like, but it's got to be this shape. So now it's like, I must admit, I prefer the other one as well. In fact, if we go back far enough, I prefer the original icon, which had like speech marks on it as well. Oh, it was so cool. Yeah, I love the original one. And the original one, right back to the alpha, was a gold colour, which I liked as well. Oh, such sadness that it's disappeared. But I much prefer that icon too. It's just the way it's gone on the Mac. Interestingly, now which one did I update? I was updating a version and the same point version had a different icon, and then when I closed it down and opened it again, it twanged to the new one, which I'm not overly fond of. But there you go. But I don't know why on Windows they've left it alone. I would have thought they wanted some kind of brand identity on it, but they've gone for that. But it does look as near as they can get it the same. These buttons are in a slightly different place. The help and preferences will be in a different place because there's no concept of the Scrivener menu item. So there should be settings. The settings will be somewhere else. Trust me, they'll be somewhere else. But it's minor differences. And the two are completely compatible, which I will show you down the line. We will open one up. Right, but the last thing to get done this week, let's see if I can come out of that. It's having a think about it. Jolly good, it let me out. That was good news, that it let me out. Right, I will close that down. And that one. There's my pristine Windows. Right, give myself a few system resources and come out of that as well. Let's power the whole thing down. Bye until next Thursday. Windows is rolled out here once a week on a Thursday to do the church newsletter. And other than that, it just goes away and stays out of my way. You let me out. You are, aren't you? You are. Away you go. Right, so in order to make this work so it can synchronize between your devices, if you want to set this up and get ready for next week and follow along, then I will show you what you need to actually do to be able to do that, which is you will need Dropbox. And how it works, a free version is absolutely fine because unless you've got an almighty Scrivener file, it's not going to be too big. So a free version is fine. And how it works, which is a bit annoying. I'm the first to admit this is a bit annoying. The stuff lives in the cloud, and for you to be able to use it, you need to upload from wherever you are working right now. Now, if that's the Mac or it's the desktop, that's Windows, it's fine, because Dropbox is integrated into both systems and you are opening a file directly from Dropbox. But to use it on iOS, it has to download it first. And then when you're not even just downloading the one file you want to work on. It will download every file. It will synchronize everything. It will not be happy if it finds a file that's open. You have to close the files as well before this sync happens. When you've edited it on iOS, that's going to then go up to the cloud again. The place it will want to upload it, although you can change that, is Dropbox Apps Scrivener. Now, I had a problem with that because I had a lot of Scrivener files that I never would edit on iOS. Never. I wouldn't have the need. And what was happening was it was taking forever to synchronize. It had to check every single file to make sure there were no changes. And my synchronization could take 25 minutes. It was hideous. Mike's wasn't too bad, was it?
No.
But Mike probably had fewer files than I did.
Smaller files as
and
well.
There were smaller files because I might have got graphics in and stuff. So that's where they need to be. That's the best place to put your files if you want it to synchronize. If you don't care if this particular file is synchronized, then put it somewhere else. And that way your sync will happen much faster. Your sync happens, as I said, when it opens the file. When it's finished, it also then needs to synchronize up again. So it's synchronizing twice. It will even prompt you to synchronize if you come out of the file, but you're still in Scrivener for iOS. I will show you all of this on iOS. But like I said, you can get away with a free Dropbox account. But you may have a question. What on earth do you do if you do have files like I have, which are too big that you don't want to edit? Right, let me show you. I will show you my Dropbox folder. Where have you put it? There have you put it. Right. So I've got some stuff in here. Oh, look, we didn't look at that before, did we? No, that's from an earlier demo. Do you remember the one we had with CollaNote? Come on, open it up, don't be silly. So let's just have a look at that. Oh, there you go. Not bad, that. There's the donkey. Oh, and the rabbit. Not bad at all, that. Right, in here, I have an apps folder. I also have application support. This is a reserved folder. This one is put there by the system. And when you install apps, it asks for permission to add folders to there. So there is the Scrivener folder. And there is the stuff in it that I am synchronizing. Not much, as you can see. I don't want there to be much. The other stuff is in Scrivener Extras. And there's acres of it. In fact, is that one still in there? I've got backup copies. The email generator's in there. My governor's notes are in there. But there should be another one. Let's have a look. It looks like I moved it somewhere. I actually had my mum's eulogy in there, in a Scrivener file. And I was using Scrivener to move blocks of it about. But all of this stuff, I don't want synchronizing. So if we check, that is 1.3 gig of stuff that I don't want synchronized. Let's move that out of the way, go up and see what I am synchronizing, which is just in there, which is that lot, which is only less than half, so about a third in there. And to be honest, I don't need the Queen Special synchronizing anymore either. Might even be able to just dump some of the others. But I only synchronize the absolute bare minimum. And the rationale of doing that is I need the sync to be faster. So if you want to get ready for next week and you haven't got a Dropbox account, then get a free Dropbox account. Right, okay, let's get back in here and wrap up. So we will be back with you next week for 141. Oh, it's Friday the 13th. What could go wrong? Last time it was Friday the 13th, the keynote ate my slides, which we all know about.
I'll be old.
Oh, and Mike will be another year older. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, still available on demand. You can get all the stuff that I do available at youtube.com/ElaineGiles. And there is a playlist for After Hours. You will find that at macbites.co.uk/After Hours playlist. And it's got all of the shows on. There will be, this is good, isn't it? You might sit down before you fall down. This is something we never thought we would be saying, but let me say it. You just sit back and enjoy it, Mike. The new MacBites will premiere on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock UK time. Never been able to say that in my entire life. We've never known when it's going to be. When you least expect it. But to spoil that game entirely, when you least expect it, it's Tuesday night, 8 o'clock UK time. And it will premiere on MacBites FM. We love you guys. If you love us guys, or you have found anything that you enjoyed, give us a like, because it really does make a difference. Right, I will be detailing more about the Scrivener stuff on elainegiles.com/VIP. I'll probably put more details in there than I will put in the MacBites mail. So make sure that you have headed over there and hit the magic button. But the MacBites mail is available at macbites.co.uk/MacBites-mail. That's all things MacBites, like the shows. And then there's Slack. Oh, we love Slack 24/7. It's where we carry on the conversation. And the link for that is macbites.co.uk/Slack. And we will be back next week, but you can get us any of those places there. So I would love to hear from you, because I want to try and make this Scrivener thing that we're going to do, this long series, useful for everybody. So get in touch. Let me know. Let me know what is useful, what is not useful, etc. Right, we got any questions? Oh, where's my glasses?
Is Scrivener on setup? And no, it isn't.
No, it's not. It's quite inexpensive for what it is, to be honest. You can get it from the store, the Mac App Store. You can get it direct from the developer. The version direct from the developer is activated with a key, but they're quite lenient. In other words, if you want it on 4 machines, they're not going to get upset with you. But obviously the one from the App Store, put it on wherever you like. The Windows version is available direct from them, and again, that is activated. If you've got any older version of Scrivener, version 1 or 2, you would be able to upgrade from it. Don't look for version 2 for Windows, it didn't exist. They went straight from 1 to 3, so it matched. Okay. Oh, Paul loves watching my examples, gives you ideas on how to use Scrivener for your own ideas. Oh, I should look forward to that. Renee doesn't know when he'd use it. It is very capable. Like I said, if you know about it, and you know, like it can handle audio and video and graphics, and you can write text about it, then if you do have a need for it, then you'll know that that's the app for you. But beyond that, if you've not imminently got something that you want to write or send in an email or a course to make, then maybe not. It will probably be more difficult to follow along. Although once I mean, today was quite abstract. It wasn't like, let's build this system to do X, which I will do moving forward. So maybe that will become clearer as you go. Okay. €20 for the iOS version. The iOS version is very capable. I must admit, I'm not overly keen myself. It's the sync that does it. Because Ulysses Sync uses iCloud and it's seamless apart from when Mike touches it because he broke it. But apart from that, you pick up your iPad and you're ready to go. And the Scrivener thing is like, have I closed it down on the Mac? You know, and it has got to the point with me that I've inadvertently left the file open on the Mac. So the iPad version's screaming blue murder at me. So then I have to use my Screens app, which is to tunnel through to the Mac, to close down the file, to then go back to Scrivener, wait for it to synchronise, and then finally get to work. By which point, I guarantee you I've forgotten what I was doing. This is when Drafts is your friend, because I can just tap on Drafts, type what I want, and then synchronise it back with Scrivener later. Just workflows, just total workflows. Thank you very much, Ignacio. We're wishing us a great weekend. Be well and safe. We will indeed. Patience says you could see it being a massively awesome lesson planning tool for teachers. That would be amazing. And with that, depending if you've got something like the age group, maybe, that the exercise is related to, that could be perfect for custom meta. So absolutely, it could be done for that. Debbie got it to put travel journals in and added places to add info from the internet. That sounds fantastic, Debbie. And Carol already has it and use it, but only the basics. But there was already lots I showed today you didn't know about. It doesn't do a grand job covering itself with glory, to be honest, in terms of exposing the features it's got. I think that's because when it started, the developer, Keith, was very much, I'm not adding features just because you want them. I'm adding features if they've got any value. But I don't think he had any clue when he started how many different ways people worked with it. And, you know, we haven't even touched the preferences yet. Trust me when you see the preferences. They are only surpassed by Vivaldi's preferences, which are possibly equal. Although I think possibly Scrivener might edge it even over Vivaldi. They're endless. But the thing is, once you've set them, unless you have a radical change of heart, you probably won't change them that often. And there are ways that you can transfer settings from machine to machine as well, and themes from machine to machine, which I've done, which I'll show you how I've set all of that up. But that's why I want you to know, have a sit down, have a think about what you want to know, and then let me know what that is, and then I'll be more confident of what I'm showing you being useful to you guys. Differential planning for special ed especially. Oh, absolutely. You could have different versions and switch between them with snapshots for that, although personally I'd probably do them separate and maybe keyword them. Maybe that would be a good use for the keyword. Depends what kind of output you want with that. You could actually... Oh, I'm thinking now. One of the key features, which is a fabulous feature that I've yet to see anybody explain well, is collections. What you could do is you could have one set of exercises, or whatever you would call them. Hang on, let me see what you've called them. Lessons. You could have one set of lessons where some of them are relating to like group 1 and some of them are relating to group 2, but keep them all together. And then at the point you come to compile, you can use a smart collection, which will automatically update based on some criteria that you've given it, and be able to just say compile, and you would get 3 different outputs, which would be such a time saver. Because what you don't want to do is to have 3 different Scrivener files and then try and keep them updated across 3 different files. You want to keep it as simple as possible. That email one that you saw of mine, all my emails in it. It doesn't matter whether it's going to my list, Mike's list, MacBites, or one of the other about 7 lists that we've got. They are all in the same place. The reason being, what you don't want to do, you want to set the file up, but you don't want to be working with it and think, oh, I need another status, and so I'll add one. Oh, I need another label, I'll add one. And then have to keep 5 or 6 more files up to date with the meta that you've changed. So if things are in one file, as far as you can possibly keep it, in one project, it makes life a whole lot easier. But I will show you all that. Right. District has specific programs, but specific aspects for the student. IEP would be put in as needed. It sounds like it could do it. Probably just need a little bit of a think about it. And once you've got an idea of what the features do, then use the features for what works for you, rather than, like I said with me with the keywords, absolutely no need for keywords. So I didn't. And then I was in the middle of this project and I looked at it and I thought, what I was doing was keeping 2 different types of information in 2 different folders. And then I thought, this won't particularly work, because I need the calendar thing. They need to be done by date. And then I thought, but if I move them so they're all in the same folder, I won't know which. Oh, you stupid woman, why don't you use keywords? And that was the first time keywords had been relevant for me. So I'll show you that one. Carol is writing a guide to YouTube, but the company wants the final result in Google Docs. Can it compile to that? Yes, it can. When it comes to the compile, you tell it what you want compiled and what you want it to look like. So what the content is and what it looks like. And then the trick is working out which compile format works best for what you need. So the way it doesn't have a compile, make it an email option. It doesn't have that at all. But it does have 3 formats in there, all of which could make an email. So what I did was I just worked through them and worked out which one did it best. If you want it to be a Google Doc, the best thing you can do is compile to RTF and import the RTF to Google Docs, and then you're done. It's not that tricky. It can compile to Word, but you don't need Word. RTF's just as good. The reason that I would say compile to RTF rather than anything else, or Word or RTF, it will take the styles with it, and that should be read into Google Docs. The other thing, if it doesn't do it as well as you want it to do, there is another option, which is Google Docs will import Markdown, and Scrivener can write out to Markdown. So there will be a way to do it, trust me. It's just working out which is the best way for you. But yes. Okay, do we have any more questions? Last call for questions before I seriously contemplate ice cream. Seriously. But do let me know about what you're going to do with Scrivener, or what you would like to do with Scrivener, or even if it's just something that you thought Scrivener might be able to do. That would be grand. Will it take images into RTF? Yes, it will, Carol. It will. It can do really clever things with the compile, honestly. Going through compile, I'm working on the principle here. This series isn't going to be finished until NaNoWriMo, which is the end of October. It starts at the end of October. And I'm working on the principle I could take the whole of NaNoWriMo just to talk about compile. I have touched on compile before, but to do it justice, you can't do it in an hour, because it can just do so much. So one of the things I did with compile was compiling from Scrivener to Affinity Publisher. And we did that via Word. So it's knowing the route to take and the settings to use to make that work best. So yes, it can. You'll be fine, trust me. Right, if we have no more questions, my ice cream is calling me. Isn't it, Mike? We have got some, haven't we? How did the shopping go tonight?
Fine.
It didn't go fine. You swapped from Asda for a start because they didn't have enough water. So what were Tesco short of?
Then radishes, but we've got some. Then I used £33 of vouchers to get the bill down by a third.
Oh, that's rather good. This is how they get you back. Tesco's haven't got any stock, but they'll give you money.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Oh, Carol's never compiled anything. It's going to be a revelation, Carol. But we need to look at all the other features before we get that far. Seriously, we do. Right, okay then. If there's no more questions, I am going to take my leave of you. Hang on, can't see my glasses again. I've swapped my glasses again, which means I can't see it. Thank you very much, Renee. I will indeed have a lovely ice cream. I'm contemplating at the moment whether I have caramel and cream ice cream or whether I go for a Magnum on a stick. Oh, decisions. But I'll work it out. So, for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.